Ben voilà, normalement j'ai redémarré tout. Normalement tout devrait refonctionner. On va voir si on arrive à avoir Jedi. Attention, ça va démarrer dans 50 secondes. C'est parti.
Welcome to GameStack Live.
We're all gamers.
Oh my god, I can't wait for this to
va.
come out.
We've created GameStack Live to help level up
Ça
your
va,
game
nickel.
development.
That's the experience we always want people to have, right? You know, the experience of walking out of the
Yes,
tavern
I
and
will.
seeing your ship in front of you.
I want a pirate name.
What's your pirate name?
I don't know, but I want one.
Nothing about us without us. The most important thing is that you listen to the community.
You designed for one, you
Surtout
solved
que
for
la
another.
page de la
C'était vraiment
bête.
de la
I don't
merde,
have
ce
Twitter,
nom.
but you can
Putain.
email me.
You guys got jackets?
Oh, I did.
I didn't get a jacket. Malik just said he didn't get a jacket.
The future of gaming with the Xbox Series
Bah, je pensais qu'il fallait quand même montrer la console, mais bon, j'ai pas
Vraiment, ils
l'impression
font
qu'ils l'ont
double
montré. Hein.
blasphémie à chaque fois pour rien.
Day one is a wrap.
We can't wait to see what you will create.
Ah, j'ai vu, il y a un sondage là sur Julien Chiez là. Comment vous avez trouvé la PS5? T'as vu ce qu'ils ont marqué? C'est la cata. Hein. La cata.
Ah, Master
C'est
Chief,
sûr.
yes.
Tout à fait.
Ça démarre pas pareil déjà.
Ouais, bon, il va y avoir du blabla. Hein. Pas fort. Ça c'est clair qu'ils vont en mettre, mais bon, on va peut-être avoir des jeux quoi.
Ça n'a rien à voir déjà.
Du visuel.
Welcome to day 2 of GameStack Live, a special event for you, the developers, to learn more about what Microsoft GameStack solutions can do to enhance your build, engage your players, and ultimately empower you and your team to create great things.
That is right, Malik. But of course, this event isn't just the live show. In fact, over on our YouTube channel, we've got a fresh, hot batch of tech talks, demos, and a whole host of deep dives designed to get you fully up to speed on the latest from GameStack.
And remember, we want to hear from you. It was a party in our Discord yesterday with questions for our tech experts and insights into panel discussions. So jump in and join us. The water is great, I promise. Today is the day to give us your impressions, your thoughts, your questions. Remember, we've got a host of tech specialists ready to
Ah, ça
answer.
va être
Let's
absolutely right, Malik. In
Jérémy,
fact, we
non?
had a great question posed yesterday by Mr. Andy Puppy, and they asked,
Est-ce que
Mais
ça
non,
va
il est rentré
fonctionner?
dedans.
development technology has
Ah
changed the
oui, ça
game
y
in the
est,
last
déjà.
5 years.
Console de merde.
Je pense que j'ai un gros problème. Je n'y arrivais pas.
Now on Discord, a user responded, and that's Scipio.
Et la
To the
conférence
first question,
Microsoft, elle
Unreal
commence
Engine
réellement à
Games is
19h.
constantly investing and inspiring in the
Ah bon?
indie community. In the last
Salut
5 years,
poto,
Unreal
ça
has
fait
changed
plaisir,
so much. Absolutely right, they have.
que tu sois
Where
là.
else can you get AAA tools
Bah
and
ouais, bah
education
carrément.
for free? For puny
Pour
and
venir avec
significant
moi.
peons like me, not like you,
Bah
like
ouais.
me, who are striving to
Et la
learn. Look,
conférence télé,
if
même
you're
Julien
striving to learn
Chiez
and break
laisse
into the
son
industry, you're
stream.
not insignificant. Now, in
Alors qu'il
response to the second
voilà,
question, Scipio
il fait
said
tout
Sony
et
and
tout ce qui va avec
Media
chez Sony.
Molecule are really pushing the limits and
Il a
breaking
défoncé la
conventions with
conférence,
their
il dit on
Dreams
peut
game
pas être,
service.
même
Check
sa
out Dreams.
nana, sa femme,
I've
la
seen
Carole, elle
Dreams
disait
is legit. I
on peut
played
pas
it
être
a bit.
absent
I played it a
aussi
bit.
longtemps
Now it was made exclusively for the PS4.
et
The art, the audio, and programming
juste ne
possibilities
même pas
are
montrer
endless, and they
une
truly
image
unlock the
d'un jeu.
potential for gamers to learn development and team collaboration in a fun, engaging,
Non mais
and
à mon
social
avis,
environment.
tu montres
Absolutely
au
true.
moins
So
un
without having
design, tu
access
vois,
to
tu
PC
montres au
hardware,
moins un
love that
design
game,
de
by the way.
quelque chose.
Now this is just a
Et
taste of the
croyez-moi,
chat
si
happening over on our
Microsoft ils font
Discord,
une
so again,
conférence
come
une
join
heure
the
après, c'est que
conversation.
eux,
And
ils
we'll
vont
have
balancer
a
du
lot
lourd.
to talk about, starting with a look at how Inexile used
Ah,
creative
ça, c'est cool.
elements to drive Wastelands 3 development.
Par contre,
Then we're going to be jumping
Sony, ils ont
into
vu ce
the
qu'il y
world
avait.
of
Par
online
contre, vous
services
avez-
with a panel discussion around the
Ouais.
opportunities in
Par contre,
today's
vous avez
gaming
vu
industry.
Today is also the day that we
le
talk
disque
about
dur,
the
il fait
next
même pas
chapter in
intégré.
gaming. That is
825
right, the Xbox. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry.
We've
Ouais,
heard it
bah
already.
après,
The
c'est peut-être parce qu'il
Xbox
faut,
Series
c'était une
X
façon de dire qu'il y avait
Project
175
X
gigas
Cloud. We'll be
pour
talking
le
about that today.
système. tu vois.
We've got a stellar panel here.
Mais
to
ça veut
break
dire
down
quoi?
what you
Ça veut
can
dire que la
expect from this
console n'aura
console
même pas de disque
right here.
dur
Stellar
interne.
panel.
Non, si ça sera un Tera,
Non,
un
non,
Tera,
non,
en
non.
fait, c'est
I'm gonna
parce
say,
qu'un
I
disque dur
think
d'un Tera,
I'm
tu
gonna-
perds
I think-
toujours.
C'est du SSD.
Donc 825, c'est à peu près ça.
Ouais,
Ouais, ouais,
voilà,
par
super.
rapport à la
try.
puissance de
Yeah,
la
I'm gonna-
console. Ouais,
Non,
c'est-
non, en fait,
I'm gonna.
non, en fait, il y a
C'est quoi ça?
En fait, il n'y a plus de
You know
disque
what?
dur.
I think Master Chief is. I think he's gonna.
Il n'y a plus de
he's gonna
disque
tear me
dur.
apart.
En
We'll
fait,
leave
le
that-
SSD,
yeah, I'm
si
gonna
je dis
leave
pas
that.
de
But look at
bêtises,
that
expert,
box.
le SSD,
So here's the
c'est
thing.
intégré
When it was first
directement.
unveiled,
Oh,
it
putain,
looked like
c'est
a
beau,
PC
ça.
tower.
Oh,
It
la
certainly has
console.
the same shape.
Ça, c'est de la vraie
Ah, c'est pas
console. ça.
gros, ça, franchement.
The amount
Non.
of power in there, 12
Voilà,
kilobytes.
le SSD,
Amazing.
Ça, c'est
le
vrai.
SSD,
I'm blown
si je dis
away.
pas de bêtises,
I'm
le
excited.
SSD,
I
c'est
cannot wait
intégré
for holiday
directement
2020.
dans
And
tout
of
ce
course,
qui est,
Halo
on va dire,
Infinite,
façon
with
de
that
parler,
guy
de,
over there,
pour
Master
faire
Chief, of course,
court,
who is
le
garbage.
circuit imprimé, quoi. C'est-à-dire, t'as le
He's gonna
processeur
throw
et
that
t'as la
out.
mémoire
You
qui est
don't
dedans.
believe he's
Non,
not. He's
non,
not there.
non,
You're just
ça
gonna
part.
Didn't see him at all.
disavow his
C'est pas un
disavow.
disque dur
C'est
relié
ça
à
relié à
côté.
côté,
I'm very excited for it.
c'est un circuit imprimé.
Je pense pas qu'il te fasse une carte
I know,
mémoire
I know.
à 150 balles quand même.
But
Ah,
anyway,
si.
yeah,
C'est
the
con.
next generation
Franchement,
gaming,
expert, la carte
all about
mémoire
speed,
un
power,
Tera, ce
and
sera
of
du
course
150.
compatibility.
100 balles,
Ah ouais.
Remember that from yesterday. Those are the
139
notes,
euros,
and you can go and
Ouais,
on news.xbox.com and see the whole
ouais,
write-up,
Bah ouais.
as well as
de
Digital
péter le
Foundry,
prix.
who
Si
did
t'en
a
prends
great
une.
piece on it yesterday.
Par
Again,
contre,
this
expert, est-ce
console
que tu peux
is
nous
a
mettre
beast.
les...
It is absolutely
les...
It truly is. But Malik, that
Parce que,
is
ok,
not
on sait
all.
qu'il y
A
a
look
moins de
into what
teraflops, ça
drives
c'est
the
acté.
ever-eclectic
Par
Death
contre,
universe
au
we
niveau
look
de la
at
bande
today.
passante,
And we're also
la-
sitting down with the
ouais, la
coalition
bande
to talk
passante,
gears,
je crois que la
tactics,
Xbox
and their
Series X, elle en a
experience
beaucoup moins.
optimizing
Il y a
for
juste ça
PC.
qui est beaucoup moins, c'est la
Yesterday
bande
was just
passante.
jam-packed,
Parce
and
qu'en
if you
fait,
missed a session, never fear, because they'll be
Salut,
available on our
Manu.
YouTube playlist soon.
C'est le retour de
You
tout
can
le
also
monde.
check out our Mixer
Romain,
channel to watch our
Manu,
past streams.
Il n'y a
Putain.
pas
But
de,
before
il y
you
a pas
check out
moins de
those
bande
VODs, I think
passante
you're going to
par
want to
rapport à
see
la
this. Take a look
de
behind the scenes
de
of
la
a
Xbox
gaming
parce qu'il y a
development
moins de
with
bandes passantes. Mais en fait, il y a plus de CPU. Donc, ah, attention, World Premiere.
Ah. Attends,
Ah.
je
I
vais
think
mettre
strategy games
sur...
make
T'es
you
sur
feel
Mixer,
smart,
ça
I think above everything else, make you feel clever.
Fablo
Also, like
Cap.
a sense of being like a mastermind. I thought through
Vas-y,
every
envoie
possible
du Fablo.
outcome. If I take that debuff and I
Attends, moi
put
je
it
suis
on
complètement
him,
con en
it
fait.
combos
Je vais aller
with
sur
his
YouTube,
ability,
puis je vais aller
Ah
voir
non,
la...
c'est
tu
Watch
diffuses
Dogs.
sur...
and this, and you build
Tu
all
diffuses
these
sur
like
YouTube,
layers upon
expert.
layers,
YouTube et
and
Mixer.
then feel like a
Et
genius or a fool
Facebook.
depending on how it plays out.
Ouais, ça... Ouais, salut.
Partout sur Xbox One Actu.
Ça
Ouais,
va?
il est là, Manu.
Ouais, Xbox One Actu, et on est même dans le mois gratuit de Jackie Michel et de Portneuf.
Well, I mean, part of it
Ready
is
for
heritage. It
Ready
goes
for
back to miniatures. You know, it goes back to
Ouais, la
play-by-mail
PlayStation,
games.
Ah,
You know, the
j'espère
really,
que
really
vraiment
part
la
is
PlayStation,
what
mais
made
couilles,
the games business.
Ouais, en
durer
toute
10 mois, hein.
Really, it's about
En-
using
en
your
toute-
brain
en
to make
toute
tactical
objectivité,
decisions and
en
sort
toute
of
objectivité, elle
out-clevering
était
the
vraiment
designer
à chier.
or whatever the situation is.
Et
And that
pourtant,
same
vous savez que moi
payoff
je
of
suis un
fun
petit
for
peu
you
plus
using your brain and
partagé.
thinking has continued to be
J'aime bien les
entertaining.
deux.
I think one of the main things about turn-based tactical games that have helped them to flourish
Tu sais,
and
je vais te
last
dire,
over the
Oui.
years
Pour
as
ça,
a
si
genre
c'était
is
juste
that
pour les
they
développeurs,
provide
fallait le faire en
choice.
closed door.
They
Fallait
give
pas en faire
players
tout de suite,
interesting situations,
Ouais.
interesting tools, and the time necessary for
Ah,
players to
attends-toi
think
qu'en
through and
Amérique,
decide the proper course
Microsoft
of action.
reprenne
Voilà.
le
You
champ-
can't
le-
play
le
another
terrain.
game that has
Non
that
mais
time
c'est ça,
pressure
non mais je veux dire,
and still
tu peux
feel
pas
like at
teaser.
the end I got to
Parce
think
que
through all
tout
the
le monde
possibilities.
s'attendait
I'm the
déjà
genius.
au moins
I thought
à
through
voir la
every way
console.
this could work out.
Au moins un
and then it
design
didn't
de
win
la
exactly
console.
as
Tu vois,
I
juste
wanted it to.
pas la montrer, même pas l'avoir sur eux.
It serves a
Et puis
need that
leur
no
truc du
other
faux
game
public,
can
c'est quoi ces
fulfill.
conneries? Bah, c'était complètement con. Autant pas en mettre et faire un Nintendo Direct.
I have vivid memories of playing Wasteland 1 on my Apple II. Very fond memories that I still have my
Bah,
box
c'est
set
plus
at
puissant
home.
que
I
la
really
Ouais.
like it.
PS5 déjà.
And for Wasteland 2, I was a backer before I joined it.
Ouais,
Ouais,
voilà,
on
ça
a du
démarre
jeu
un peu.
et on a une
This
deuxième
type of game is
concert,
something I love. This
Jackie.
franchise is something that
On
I'm
voit
deeply
du jeu, on
about.
voit pas des sortes de pixels.
For me,
c'est pas
joining
des
On sait à quoi-
écrans, pour te dire.
on sait à
important
quoi
thing is
ressemble
that
la manette.
I really wanted to deliver on
Et
player
Expert,
expectations. I think if you distill it
Expert, t'as mal
down,
compris, hein.
what people love about
Elle est
Wasteland is
rétrocompatible.
its tone, its
PlayStation
mood.
4, quoi.
They love the choices
Il a
and they
pas
love
confirmé
the
la
reactivity and the way that the
il est
world
Ah oui,
resté
pour
sur
le moment, il a dit
reflects what
PS4,
you do
il
as
a
a
pas
player.
dit...
PS4
Delivering on those core
uniquement parce
elements of
qu'il a même
Wasteland
dit
is,
ouais, a
is something which
eu beaucoup de mal, a mis
I
des
try to
années,
focus as many of my
nanana.
decisions around as possible.
Donc pour l'instant.
Ah mais ça
PS4.
arrivera pas à la sortie de
Game
la
design
console,
is
ça
about
arrivera peut-être plus
friction.
tard, mais
There's always
c'est sûr
friction.
qu'ils
So
ont...
there's the how much
Ils n'ont
code
pas
are
la
we going to
technique
reuse
encore
from
pour
the
pouvoir
last
faire comme
one
Sony,
versus
comme
create new
Microsoft, comme
code.
ça la
Even getting the same features
Après,
to work
attention,
and
attention.
adding on other
Microsoft,
features is
Microsoft,
generally
c'est
ends up being
uniquement
pretty much
les
of a
jeux
rework.
compris dans le
In
programme
many
de
cases, it
rétrocompatibilité.
felt like we were making
Oui,
routines
bien
do
sûr.
exactly what they had done
Après,
pas
before,
tout,
leur programme, ils
right?
peuvent faire
But they needed a little
comme
bit
ils
of a
ont fait
twist.
avec la
To get those
la
better
One.
visuals, we needed to do things
Bon,
a different
après,
way. They needed
après,
to
pour être
maybe
tout à
have
fait
a,
honnête,
perhaps a different memory footprint or a different way that they were streamed
Voilà,
in.
je pense que si on met 500 balles dans une console,
Everything's
enfin, moi
all
perso,
tied to each other, and so
pas pour
you
jouer à
can never
Ninja
make all your
Gaiden
decisions
sur la
in
Xbox
a
sortie il y a 20 ans.
vacuum. So
Oui,
everything
voilà.
affects everything. So development's hard.
Ouais.
When you're building any series, it's
Moi-
really about like
Ouais,
you
moi,
look at
pour
the
moi, la
previous game and you say what works and what didn't,
la
and that
rétro
second part's
Xbox
really
One.
important.
Oui,
Just
parce que
because your
les jeux
previous game was
resteront
successful
jolis. Je veux dire,
doesn't
ce qui
mean
se
that
fait
there wasn't
actuellement,
like
c'est
a
déjà très très beau.
superfluous,
Mais
like why did we let you customize your
remettez
pet? You know,
KOTOR.
did that
Moi,
really make the game
j'avais
more
adoré
fun?
KOTOR à l'époque
Why
quand
did
il
we
était sorti
have
sur
75
Xbox.
kinds of shoes? Do you even need a shoe slot?
Je l'ai
Because
remis
as
en
you add new features,
rétrocompatibilité,
you also
j'ai
need
pas
to, I think,
tenu
consolidate and
10 minutes.
condense and potentially
Et
lose
pourtant, j'ai
features
passé des
that
heures et
weren't
des heures.
adding value. It's kind of like it's a sauce. You
Ça-
like
ça,
reduce
ça
the
doit
dollars
aller.
to finest elements,
Je pense que
and then all
là-dessus,
that
il
extra
faut-
water that you didn't need just kind of evaporates off, and then you get like this. That's
Moi j'ai fait,
Ouais.
Fable 2,
Wasteland 3,
Fable
ouais.
3 et Fable Anniversary, franchement, qui est sorti sur 3.6 et c'est franchement c'est passable largement.
Non.
Après ça
Sur
dépend comment
3.6.
je les passe. Hein.
So
Oui,
you had
sur-
your
mais après
six
oui,
or
sur la
more if
Xbox
you had
normale,
followers,
non.
and you could have a
Voilà.
party
Bon,
of
même
10
si
that
Parce
you
que
could
je
go
Fable-
fasse un
to.
petit GTA Vice City,
It
tu
would
vois.
just ping
Putain, qu'est-ce que je
pong.
voudrais
Fable
me
a
le
été-
refaire.
Back and forth as
Parce
this
que
person
pour
moved
rappel,
and that
Fable a
person
été
moved and this
refait.
person moved
Fable,
and
il
that
a été,
person
il y a eu
moved.
un
Oui,
Fable
il a été
Anniversary.
remasterisé.
my medics over here.
Voilà, il y a eu un
My
remaster.
snipers over
C'est pas la
here.
version
I
Ouais,
would
mais
like
le
originale.
deux, le
them to
trois,
move together,
le deux, il est
heal,
trop
and then
par
I want my
contre,
sniper to move back.
Il
and
montre
take a
quoi là
shot.
Il montre pas son.
62 là. le
What
Ouais.
seems like a pretty basic thing
ça va
takes,
être un peu plus
you know, one,
amélioré.
two,
ah,
three
oui,
c'est un peu dans
turns
le
to
même
pull
style.
Allez.
off, and it's protracted over, you know, a minute and a
Pourquoi t'as
half.
quitté
Non,
So
non,
it
non,
doesn't
c'est ma
feel
manette
punchy,
qui était,
and it also doesn't respect your choices as
C'est la
much.
manette qui était sur mon genou.
Whenever turn-based games put too much emphasis
Moi
on
j'aimerais bien qu'il fasse
AI
une
Et-
surprise là, un
makes
petit
your mind
Fable
no
là, mon
longer,
pote.
draws players out of the experience.
Oui.
We
Avec
really
un
wanted to
Fable.
make
Non,
sure that
voilà,
the enemies
voilà.
were
Non,
moving
alors par contre,
efficiently,
il y a un
and then we
truc,
get
à
the
mon
game
avis,
back as
Microsoft, ils
fast
vont
as
annoncer le
possible to your
16e
turn as a
studio
player.
qu'ils ont racheté. Et imaginez, on sait pas, imaginez, on peut
Ah ouais.
rêver, on
Voilà,
en parlait avec,
Wasteland
on en parlait
T'as
avec,
pas de...
on en parlait avec
Is
expert,
definitely punchier and more responsive
on
than
en
it's
parlait
ever
avec,
been.
on en
Move
parlait
on to
avec
a
expert
turn-based
hors ligne,
system where it's the
comme ça
player's
entre nous.
turn and he can move all of his rangers in whichever
Imaginons,
way he wants
là,
to. And that is
Microsoft,
to allow
parce que
for
il y a
more
un seul
intricate
éditeur tiers qui a
tactics
annoncé
between
le
multiple
Smart
characters.
Delivery.
I'm
C'est
gonna have this
Cyberpunk.
guy shoot that sniper
imaginez que Microsoft il commence à balancer, on a racheté Bethesda. CD Projekt. Et oui.
Oh mais c'est capable. Ah si.
Et Cyberpunk,
Cyberpunk
exclusif Xbox Series X. Allez. Non, d'ailleurs, je pense même pas qu'il serait comme ça. Ah, par contre, Sony,
Non pas.
ils ont là, on est d'accord, ils ont balancé toutes les features et tout de la console, le VR et tout. Donc, il n'y a pas de smart,
The most
il y a pas de
critical
smart
with
delivery. Alors.
game making is you got to get to the iteration part.
C'est-à-dire que si tu achètes Last of Us 2 sur PlayStation 4,
Definitely in Exile, we put
il
a lot
faudra
of
que tu le
emphasis
rachètes
on
en
iteration
remaster
and
sur
finding
PS5.
the fun as early as humanly possible.
Alors
And
que
to
nous,
that
si on
end,
achète
we
un jeu sur
definitely
Xbox,
try to not
on peut
over-design on
jouer
paper.
sur
C'est ça. Si t'achètes
Voilà.
Il y a même
Find
compris,
the fun
hein.
and get people just
Ouais.
worrying about the
Avec
user
le
experience.
PC, si c'est rétro en.
That's a
Ouais,
challenge.
non,
That
mais-
is a really big challenge
Non,
working
non,
on a
non,
particular
que-
level or a particular asset,
Voilà,
and we
non,
spend
mais
all
oui,
of this
que
time
t'achètes
honing that
Cyberpunk,
particular
que tu
aspect of the
l'achètes
game,
chez
and what
Caroux,
often gets
chez
lost if
Micromania
you're not careful
ou en
is
démat,
the player's experience.
tu l'achètes
So
sur
we
Xbox
are
One,
hungry
et ben
for
quand tu auras la
information, for
série
data,
X,
for
donc
insights,
tu auras un
for
patch si t'as le
anything that we
jeu
can get our hands on
en
that helps
démat
us understand
en
how
démat,
players play
en
this
démat,
game.
et tu auras un
Recently,
patch
we've
et
taken
tu
on
auras la
a
version
process
X,
where
série
I've been
X,
playtesting
même
and
avec
then
les
kind
versions
of like a
physiques.
YouTube
Ils
streamer,
m'ont bien dit,
I
hein.
record my
Version
playtests.
physique, il y
So
aura le
basically,
patch
Mais
I
pas
get
et ça
PC.
to
tournera.
PC aussi
stream,
pour les jeux
and
Xbox.
then
PC,
Juste
le
console.
jeu sortira de
Tu les
base.
as déjà. En fait, sur Xbox, quand t'achètes un jeu
I'm
Microsoft
talking
Game
out
Studio, tu
loud.
l'as
ouais.
sur
Oh, that
Xbox.
was really funny.
Donc
Oh my
PC
God, this
et
is so
maintenant sur
frustrating.
série
Like,
X.
why is it
Pour 3
working
jeux,
that way? Or like,
t'achèteras
holy crap,
la
plus
licence une fois, tu l'auras
70%
sur 3
evasion. That's nonsense. We gotta tamp that down.
Ouais,
mais-
You are
donc
trying
comme
to have
ça
fun
se
with this
passe
game,
avec
so
le
you
Game
want to
Pass,
be
avec
having fun while you
Xbox
play
Ouais, c'est
test.
ça, ouais.
console,
And then
Voilà.
you want to be
PC.
super vigilant of those moments
Ouais.
where that fun gets sucked out of the room
En fait, Romain,
for
le
whatever
Smart
reason that
Delivery,
is.
The more
c'est
time we
juste
get to
qu'avant,
iterate, the better the
bah toi,
product's
bah, on
going
l'a
to be. It's
connu
always
cette
the
génération.
case. We play for 4 or 5 hours every
T'avais,
day. I'm going through the
on va prendre
game
l'exemple d'Halo.
sentence by sentence,
Halo
combat
1,
by
2, 3,
combat,
4,
and questioning
et ben,
every
ils ont sorti
single
un
thing that goes
remaster.
on, every visual
Et
effect.
bah là,
When the
si
songs
t'avais-
kick
si tu
on, is
possèdes
that
déjà
combat feel
Halo
right?
1,
Is
2,
that
3,
too
4,
hard? Did I work
et ben,
too hard to
tu
get
le
a piece
mettras
of
dans ta
loot
série
that's not
X,
that great?
si t'as
That's
les
really going to
CD,
make me
si
upset,
tu l'as en
right?
démat,
And
tu
so you have
l'installes
to take
et
in the
tu auras,
totality of
s'il
the
existe une
experience and say,
version
how is it making me feel?
série X,
And then
tu
you've
l'auras,
got to
tu
go
n'auras
through
pas
and make
besoin
all those
d'aller
changes and then do
racheter
it again.
une version série
Oui,
X.
t'auras juste un patch. Ouais, t'auras juste un patch pour.
Comme
pour,
ils ont fait pour Red Dead,
S'ils ont fait,
le
oui.
patch 4K.
Ouais, ouais, carrément. Ouais, ouais, c'est ça, ouais, j'ai compris. Ouais, il y aura juste
carrément,
un patch à
Jackie.
It's
télécharger en
not
plus.
like we were building
Ouais,
a new
carrément,
genre
Jackie.
and we weren't sure if the genre would work.
En tout cas,
We're
ça
not
fait
making
plaisir de
Katamari
retrouver
Damacy,
Victo,
you know
tout
what I
ça. Là,
mean?
ça-
We were building
Et
a turn-based strategy game, and
mais
we know
c'est
the
ça,
genre really well.
c'est-
So we know that
Par
can be
contre,
fun.
on
It's
en
just
pas
a
parlé,
matter of
donc
execution.
Sur Square Enix, ils ont signé un partenariat avec Microsoft.
You know, if you think
Bah, il y a
about it,
Power Rangers aussi,
that's
au
the
fait, dans
length
les
of
jeux. Je
these
t'ai dit,
games.
t'as
So
vu,
this
j'ai fait
game
une
may
news
be
sur
50 or
Xbox One Actu,
60
les nouveaux jeux du
hours.
Game Pass.
What is that? Every Star
Il y a
Wars
Bleeding
film
Edge, me semble
ever
savoir,
made
il y
end
a
to
Ace
end?
Combat 7
There's more information
qui
than
arrive,
any
il y a
one
The
human
Surge 2.
could know inside of these products. So you got to wrangle this big
Ça,
beast
ça commence
and
à
make
faire
sure
pas
it
mal
comes in tight.
de jeux. Bah là, de toute façon, là, ils vont présenter les quelques
We
jeux
build
encore.
big games and we build
vont sortir sur
complicated
Xbox.
games,
Ouais, mais je crois que Wasteland
and we
3,
could make our
d'ailleurs, il y a
lives
il y a
a
une bêta
heck of a lot
qui
easier
va arriver.
if we would just narrow the scope of what we would do or make different decisions along the way.
Ah, d'ailleurs,
But we
on
love
vous
these games,
proposera
and our fans love
certainement,
these games.
certainement demain
Interacting
soir,
with the community
demain
and
soir ou
interacting with the
vendredi,
fans through
vendredi
builds that we
sûr,
give out
ce
to them
sera
or through
Doom,
forums
Je
where
crois
we
que ça
get input
sera
from
Eternal.
backers.
Resident Evil 3.
That has helped us distill down what we want to preserve and
Ah, vous l'avez
protect
acheté,
and is
Resident
non-negotiable
Ah,
about the
il y a une
franchise,
démo. Ah, il y a une
and
démo.
then also look forward to the
Ah, il y a
areas
une
where we
démo,
think we
d'accord.
can really innovate more.
Il y a une démo de Resident Evil 3 et il y a une démo de le 27, il y aura Résistance.
Celui qu'on avait fait en bêta en live.
Oh, pff, ouais, résistance. Oui, bon, bah, c'est bon. Hein. C'est pas le
Bon,
meilleur. hein,
Résistance,
mais bon.
je pense que Résistance,
Wow, what an
je
incredible
pense que
journey.
Résistance
And here to talk
deviendra
more about it,
anecdotique. hein.
please welcome Tim Campbell and David Rogers.
Je
Ah,
sais
pour
pas
arriver
pourquoi.
à
How's it
l'inclure dans
going?
le 3 pour.
Hello, how are you?
c'est-
Non,
I am
non, non, ce
doing
sera
very
juste,
well.
ce
How
sera
are
juste
you?
un bon en plus.
Dude,
Moi, tu vois,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oui, mais
Quand
là-bas,
j'achète,
c'était
Now, as you
euh,
see,
censé
everyone,
être un
real
jeu.
quick, we're practicing
Voilà.
social
C'est un
Non,
genre en
distancing
ligne,
today
qui
with
était
our
censé
interviews on
sortir, non
Microsoft Teams.
Non, en fait,
So
ils ont
thanks again
feinté
for
tout le
being a
monde,
part of
c'était
that.
Resident
And
Evil
we're
tout de
gonna
suite.
be doing it
Expert,
a
quand
little
t'avais
bit
fait la,
differently, but it's live, you know?
la
I heard
démo,
some comments
I was
yesterday.
hoping
stream,
for this.
on se
You're built
disait,
for it.
tout
Perfect.
ça c'est
I'm
Resident
super
Evil
excited.
parce qu'il y a
But now let's
Nemesis.
kick things off.
Il y a un
Actually,
mec qui
before
arrête
we
pas
even
de
get
te
started
courir
into the
après.
questioning, tell us about
C'est un
who you
joueur
are
qui
and what you
dirige,
do
donc
at
c'est
In
pas terrible.
Exile.
T'avais toujours un gars.
So I'll start off.
Ouais.
My name is
Ça
Tim
fait un peu
Campbell. I'm
comme
the game
Friday
director
13.
on
C'est un,
and
un forfait.
I just help wrangle the project, everything about it.
Voilà.
The
On voit
pieces
sur
to
un
make sure
jeu
that
là
it's on
qui
track
casse
and it's
au-dessus
turning
là,
out to be
ça,
as
jeu
great
à
of a game as
con, hein.
possible. And a lot of times
mais
that
après,
involves just
après, pour
working
moi, il
with the different
devrait.
development team members, making sure they have what they need,
Ah,
making sure that there's nothing
pour moi, il
blocking
devrait,
them or obstacles in their way, and just making
devrait
sure that
balancer
everything is running smoothly.
Bah, ils doivent
des
pas
jeux, mais là pour l'instant,
And I'm David
c'est
Rogers.
pas.
I'm
là,
a
il y a
Non,
plus
designer.
je pense.
Franchement, il y a plus de jeux,
Je
il y
pense
aura
que.
plus de jeux.
With like our
Franchement,
lead
ils
systems
attendent
designer and
pas
our
Non,
lead
mais non.
content
sur les jeux
designer and
là.
our writers to really make
Non,
sure
mais n'empêche
every element of the
que
game
ça,
comes together
ça
in something
confirme,
that
en
is
tout cas,
fun, like
Microsoft en
kind
interne
of in
devait être
charge
au
of the
courant
game actually being fun.
de
And so
pouvoir
I'm one of the
continuer
few
de
people
pisser
on the
plus
team
loin, à
that
dire moi
does
j'ai
what
12
most people
teraflops.
think game developers do, which is just play the game a ton. and
Il
then
faut voir ce
complain.
côté-là.
And
Et
so I'm
par
in that
contre, vous
really
avez vu
enviable position.
RDNA 2 pour
That's
la
awesome.
PS4,
Two very
pour la
important
PS5 aussi.
roles on the
Comme
team,
ça, c'est
and it's
normal,
funny
c'est avec le
because
processeur.
you mentioned it just there.
C'est-
People think that all you do at
technologique.
Oui, mais
game
normalement, ils
game
avaient que
teams
du
is
R.
just play
Non.
games, which is somewhat true, I guess. And
Oui,
I
mais
love
normalement,
the
ils devaient
fun
avoir que
fact
du
of
R.
making sure
Ouais,
that's
mais
in
comme
there.
ils
So
ont
we're
pris
gonna
le
get
même
into all
Ils avaient
that
annoncé
stuff.
que du.
Again,
Enfin,
that piece was super
Microsoft,
awesome,
c'est
but
obligé de l'avoir.
I want to start off with
Microsoft.
storytelling. What do you all think
Et
about
d'ailleurs, je
your
comprends pas,
development
parce
story
que
that we
quelque
kind of just
part,
saw in
on sait
Save
très
Game?
bien comment
Tell us a
ça
bit
se
about
passe.
that.
En off, il y a des
I thought it
contrats,
was
il y a des
fantastic.
contrats de
I love
non-divulgation.
that you guys
Mais tu
put
crois
it
que
front and
Sony,
center on
ils vont voir
iteration.
AMD, tout
That
ça,
is
et
at
puis
the
ils disent,
core of
ouais les
everything
gars,
we do in
AMD,
Exile.
alors
With
ils font quoi
games that are
Microsoft?
as
Et puis
big
pareil de
and
l'autre côté, bon ils font
interconnected
quoi
and
Sony?
sprawling as we make
Bah,
them, we
il y a un
have
moment,
to be
enfin tu vois,
playing them constantly,
ils
and we
doivent
have to be
balancer, ils doivent
iterating
dire, ah, ils vont
as
faire ça, ils
fast
vont
as
faire ça.
humanly possible. And Brian
Par
touched on
contre, je
it in
pense
the video.
que ce qu'ils ont balancé,
Iteration is
ce
everything.
qu'ils ont balancé,
If you look at the
je pense
game
que
quality,
la grosse
what
feature
players actually play and what
au-delà
they
des
experience,
teraflops, tout ça,
everything
pour
that
moi,
they're
c'est
going to come
vraiment le
away
smart
and love
delivery.
is from iteration. It's due to us being able
Ouais,
C'est
to
déjà
que
qu'ils
play
aient une
and
Xbox
test and
supérieure à la
refine and just
PlayStation.
home in
Normal.
on the
T'as vu,
fun
le
Pas
logo,
besoin
pas
de,
mal.
ouais,
as
non mais
quickly
pas
and
besoin,
as
pas besoin
consistently as
d'avoir,
we can.
ouais,
Yeah,
et
and so David,
pas,
I would love to dial
pas
in on
besoin
that a
d'avoir,
bit
pas
Mais faut
besoin
pas
as
qu'ils
d'avoir
far as
de.
faut pas qu'ils
iterative
aient
process.
leur acquis,
You know,
hein,
what is it
PlayStation,
about
parce qu'ils se
that
disent ouais,
about it
PS4 ça a
that appeals
tellement
to you so
marché, tu
much?
vois.
Like when you are
Ils se disent
iterating
ouais,
on a
bah
thing,
avec
what
la
are some of the things that
PlayStation
you're
5,
looking
tu vois,
for?
c'est un peu comme les FIFA,
Well,
les
I
machins
don't
comme
know
ça,
that
tu
it
sais.
appeals too much.
À trop
Ouais,
As
tendance à
much as
croire
it's
que les
the
gens ils vont
only
taper
way to
dessus.
arrive at something that is
Sauf
like
que là, le
truly
problème,
fun
il y a
and
eu un
polished.
coronavirus, donc
And I
toute
think
l'Asie a
that's
été touchée.
doubly true for
Et je te
big
raconte pas
sprawling
comme le.
RPGs like ours,
Et je
where
pense que
like
ouais, et
as
puis,
opposed
Xbox va
to
reprendre le marché
making
sur
Street Fighter, for
en
non,
instance, which is a
Amérique, c'est
beautiful game.
quasiment
That's a
sûr.
purely
et
systems-driven
puis il faut
game.
pas oublier
You
une
don't have to
chose,
worry about
c'est
oh,
que
how much money is the player
Sony
earning
a,
each
a
time
perdu
they,
la bataille
beat
PS3.
Vega, and then what kind of
Oui,
gear are they buying, and how does that
ils,
influence their
oui, ils
Tout le
ont
monde
power,
perdu,
and
dit,
bon,
what's the
ils ont
power
tout le
curve
monde,
across all the fights? Like,
tout le
there's a
monde dit,
whole other
Sony,
side of this that means that I
Sony,
can't,
ils ont fini
like,
à égalité avec
it's
Microsoft.
impossible to test a
Oui, je suis
level in
d'accord, mais
isolation. We
Sony
can't
est
just hop
passé de
into a level
Mais pas
175
en
load
millions
a
de
États-Unis.
default
machines
party
à 90 millions.
play, because
Donc
if somebody
c'est
changed
et
the cash
Microsoft est
reward of a
passé de 20
previous
millions
quest,
à
that
90
changes what
millions.
gear I
Donc
have,
c'est
that changes my
qu'on
power
sur
level.
la
Everything
génération
is so
PS3 et
wildly
360,
interconnected that
c'est
I mean,
Microsoft
I
qui
would
a
love to
gagné
hear
la
a better
bataille.
way to go about it,
Là,
but the
sur cette
only way to
génération-là,
really make
ils
this
sont
game
fait
fun
mettre une
is to just
tannée,
play it
mais
over and over and over
c'est
again,
dû,
and like
c'est
play
même
it
pas
from
dû à
the
la
start.
console, c'est dû à
You
la
know,
communication
play
de
20
Don
hours,
Matrix,
make
je
a
sais
big
pas
Oh,
quoi
changes,
là.
fix them, and
je
then
suis désolé,
start over from the
pour
beginning,
pas
and
être
then play
méchant
25
envers
hours,
Xbox quand même,
and
quand ils
then
nous ont
start over,
sorti
and
la
then play
fac là, quand
30
même, c'est
hours, and you're
pas
kind of
non
like
plus le
crawling
meilleur.
through this
Quand
game,
tu vois que
just trying to make everything as
la
balanced.
caméra,
You know, the
Kinect.
game is.
La Kinect.
People
Ah
say
merde,
50 or
la
60 hours.
Kinect
God
T'as même
knows,
deux
oublié
I
le
qui
know.
nom.
bouffait.
T'avais
Ouais, bah oui,
oublié
parce
le
que
nom,
c'est
tellement
pour
c'était
te
de la
dire,
merde.
oui,
I'm
mais
wondering though,
la
so this is an
Kinect
interesting
bouffait
question
quand
maybe
même
for both of you, but
tellement
especially
sur la
for David.
console
With that, you know,
en recul, tu vois,
iterative
tu te
process,
dis,
and you're playing
pas
the game over
possible.
and over again. How do you
Ils ont
prevent
sorti
yourself
3
from sort
jeux,
of
ils ont sorti
like how do you have a
Disneyland.
fresh
Je sais
perspective?
pas,
How
là.
do you know that you're not getting into a spot where maybe your opinion is fogging up the development?
That's a really good question.
I don't know if there's like a good solution other
Ready
than
for it.
it's just
18,
kind of
Quand tu fais mis à
something that you
18
learn.
plus
It's like you
parce que
kind
j'ai
of
dit,
Ouais,
ça va
voilà.
force
pas.
yourself, like force selective
Je
amnesia
connais.
on yourself, or
Ah,
it's
c'est vrai,
kind of
expert, il est au milieu.
understanding the tiers of strategy.
Ah, sauf qu'il a
I
pas le
use
bout
like
comme
Witcher is
toi.
a really good
Presque
example
pareil.
that I think
Vous avez vu
everyone
ce
kind
qui,
of.
vous avez vu
It's
ce
really
qui,
popular, so it's a good
vous avez vu
example
ce
to
qui
go off
développe
of, as opposed to
Wasteland 3?
referencing Wasteland
C'est
3.
un studio
In
qu'ils
The
ont
Witcher,
créé,
for
hein.
instance,
Le
there
studio
is
qui
the
était,
standard
qui
combat
était
system,
censé
but then there's the
recruter
crafting
des
and
mecs de
like
GTA.
like magical like potions element.
Je veux pas être méchant,
And
mais
that
bon.
is that's required to play that at a higher level difficulty. So you can kind of understand like, okay, I'm starting to
C'est bien
use
le
ability
studio
combos
créé
right
et
now,
tout.
and I
Ils
know
ont-
Ouais, mais
and
Western,
on normal mode
il
for
est
a standard
vachement,
player, they
Ouais,
probably
vachement
should
on
be
parle
using
pas de
that,
GTA
so I
et
have
tout,
to
parce que
pull
quand tu
back.
vois les mecs
Ça, c'est
And
un jeu,
so
c'est
by
un
kind of
gros
ouais,
jeu
trying
sur
to
sur
your game and understanding like the tiers of strategy that someone might engage in, you can kind of purposefully shut those off in your brain or like actively say, this strategy or during this playthrough because I'm trying to test it for this user set. But you have to have a really deep knowledge of your game and your systems to kind of know how to operate that, how to break that down.
Et c'est
kind
pour
of
ça
what
que
strategies you have to extract from your own
même
play
je suis
style
certain,
in
même
order
si
to
Microsoft
simulate
annonçait
that
ce
kind of
soir,
player.
on a racheté
this is a
CD
trap
Projekt.
that it's
Et
very easy for us to
Cyberpunk
fall into
sortira
as
sur
developers
PlayStation,
because
sur
we're
toutes
working
les machines.
so long on
Est-ce
one
que
feature or one level
Minecraft,
or one
ils aura...
fight that we can just kind
et
of
comme
get
ça,
numb to it,
mais comme
right?
ça leur
And
fait
we
des
can
sources de revenus, les
maybe
gars.
make it work as we
C'est hyper
expect it to
intelligent.
with
Après,
all of the
il
context
faut
that
qu'ils
we have
pensent
in
à
our
une
mind that
chose.
players might
Sony,
not have.
ils ont pas gagné
And
qu'avec
then
leur,
if we just put that in
avec
front
leur
of
beaux yeux.
players, they wouldn't
Ils ont
necessarily
gagné avec
understand
des
it for
God
them.
of
They
War,
might
avec
have
des
friction
Last
to
of
get hung
Us,
up
avec
or
des
confused
Horizon
by
Zero
things.
Dawn.
And so we
Ils
have
ont pas
lots of
gagné
different
avec,
steps that we
ils ont
take to try
gagné
to fight against
après il y a la
Mais
marque
c'est
qui
pas
est
we
grave.
have regular playtests
Mais il
where
faut
we
de
kind of
l'exclu, il
have
faut des
some
belles
people,
exclus.
including
Oui.
Brian,
Mais
at
c'est
the
pas grave,
studio,
on
j'adore
va
will
Halo.
step
chez
back and just
Vermpress
play through
et
the
on
game
aura
like
le
a player,
prochain
right?
The
And just
Witcher
make
4
kooky parties and
écrit
make
il y a
funky
2 ans sur
choices and
Xbox.
just test out the game for fun, right? As opposed to
Non
testing
mais
it for raw
Gears of
functionality.
War 5
And
il
we
est
also do
super, il
things
est
where
génial.
our level
Halo
designers
Infinite, je
or other
l'attends
people on
avec
the team might do
impatience,
peer
mais
reviews, where a
je veux
designer
de
who
la
spent a
prise
lot
de...
of time
Mais
working on one
problème,
level may swap that level to another
regarde,
designer,
on prend
and
l'exemple,
then
un
they
exemple tout
kind
bête.
of can look at each other and
Sunset
provide fresh
Overdrive,
eyes
c'est
and
un jeu
fresh insight. And
d'Insomniac.
so this is the
Sunset
sort of thing
Overdrive,
that
Et
every
ils ont
single
fait
day
Oui, qui a
également...
été
we're trying
racheté,
to
non?
fight against, so we
Spi-
don't just
ils ont
get
fait
numb
Spider-Man.
to, you
Ouais,
know,
c'est
ils ont
ça,
fait,
ouais.
ils ont fait Spider-Man sur
Yeah,
PlayStation.
super important thing. And again,
Spider-Man a
this
cartonné.
whole show is about
Sunset
creating
Overdrive
an,
a bidé,
you know,
alors que,
optimization for
enfin,
developers.
en,
And so
en
I
toute
think that
objectivité, je me suis
knowledge
10
is
000
great to
fois plus
share.
éclaté sur Sunset
So Tim, from you,
que sur
as
Spider-Man.
game
Bah c'était
director,
fun, mais
how
c'était
do
fun
you,
le
outside of the
Sunset
Il
iteration
était,
process,
le jeu
how do
était
you
fun,
Ah oui,
plein
optimize the
d'humour,
game
oui, il était
development?
traduit en
fun.
You know,
français.
you
La
have things like
couleur et
dates that
tout,
you may have
il y
to
avait de la
hit.
couleur et
Pour
You
tout.
have,
pour une
you
fois,
know,
ils ont
features
fait un
that you
jeu.
have to get for review. How do you
Microsoft
really
ont
go
fait un jeu
about making
traduit.
sure that everything's moving along?
Parce que bon, les jeux sous-titrés,
Yeah, that's a great question.
il y a un moment,
I
c'est
mean, a
comme
lot of
GT,
it
c'est
is
comme
the iteration,
Rockstar
but
qui,
there are
je suis
different
sûr
things
qu'ils
which
vont nous
feed
sortir
into
GTA
the
6
iterative cycle, right?
en anglais.
Sometimes we
C'est
get
bon les
data,
gars,
sometimes we
vous avez
get
vendu
information from
130 millions de
whether it's
GTA
support
5,
departments, QA, or
30
backers
millions
playing in alpha or
de Red Dead,
whatever.
vous pouvez nous mettre un jeu
And
en français quoi.
those comments and those bugs and
Non,
all that
40
je sais
feedback
que-
kind
non,
of
de Red
funnels
Dead.
back
Après,
into
je
the
sais que-
development
après, je
team.
sais que-
And then we kind of
Non,
sift
non, il est
Il est
pas
pas
en
through
français.
français, Red
Enfin,
Dead.
il est
and
sous-titré.
assess what
Il est
things are
sous-titré.
actionable, what things are not.
Ah mais
And
tu
then
dis,
we
ouais,
tu dis
prioritize
30
things
millions
and
de
then,
Red
and then
Dead,
move
mais
them
non, je
into
crois
the
qu'il y a eu
development queue
40
for the
avec
team to work
la
on.
version PC,
And
je
so
crois.
on
Ouais,
one hand,
voilà,
we're
enfin,
working against our own instincts and our own
on
plan
s'arrête à GTA,
internally
ils
and
font un peu
iterating
plus de
against
100
that,
millions de
but then
jeux.
we have this funnel of
Je crois
just
qu'il y a
Ouais, mais
personne.
GTA
information
en
that's coming
10 ans.
through. It might be from
Non, mais-
people,
ouais,
you know, elsewhere in the dev
quoi.
team who aren't on our
Ouais, mais le
project,
seul jeu,
but are
le
playing the
seul
game with
jeu à
clear
faire plus de
eyes,
100
or it
millions,
might be
c'est
coming in from
Tetris et
data
Minecraft.
from backers or elsewhere. But it all comes in
Moi
and
c'est
directly
pas un
Tetris.
geek
affects
dans
how we build
Minecraft,
the
hein,
game.
ça me... franchement
Okay,
moi ça me
Yeah,
fait
there's a,
éclater
there's
sur
a couple
Minecraft.
of really good
Franchement,
sources of,
Non, bah,
c'est
mais-
of
ah
that
non, je dis pas
feedback
que c'est
that,
nul. Non, je
that
te
we've been
dis,
utilizing. So one is like
Minecraft,
at this time in particular, we recently
GTA, il
just
y a
released
même les
our
gros jeux,
beta.
les God
And then a
of War,
little
les
while back,
Halo,
we released an alpha
les
build that went to
Forza,
Gamescom, that went to our backers.
ils en
And
vendent
so
jamais
whenever those
100
things go
millions.
out, like we're
moi je sais pas ce que vous en
glued
pensez
to
les gars.
Mixer, we're
Moi
glued to
j'étais à
Même
YouTube,
fond,
Mario.
je
we are
méritais
watching
vraiment pas la
streamers
vente de 100
just
millions.
play
Moi je
through,
suis
and I
désolé,
love
j'ai
how
vraiment pas
streamers
accroché au mode
play
en
because
ligne
they're
ni
trying to
rien.
entertain the
C'est
audience.
complètement
But to do
débile,
that, they are
franchement.
just
Non, mais
like
même,
taking
Après
their
chacun.
inner monologue and they're just
Et
blurting
quand
it
tu
out.
regardes
And
que,
so every
je
little
crois que j'avais
Yeah, totally.
j'avais vu
oh,
quelque
that
part il y a
sucks, I can't believe
2-3 ans,
that. I had a 95% hit
les
chance. Why
Mario,
did that
la
not work?
licence
Or like
Mario,
every
tout
little thing
support
that bugs
confondu,
them, they blurt out
c'est
really
250
loudly,
millions de
you
jeux.
know, ah.
Je crois, de
And
vente.
then
Tous les Mario,
furthermore,
avec les
what's
Mario
been really
Foot, les
useful for
Mario,
super
depuis la
detailed,
NES.
super actionable feedback
La
has been the
GTA,
Microsoft Usability
ils
Lab.
font plus de 100
We will
millions
take,
avec
we took
GTA.
our
Donc
gamepad.
ils peuvent
For
nous,
instance, we
ils
did a
peuvent nous
first
mettre
pass
une
iteration
putain de
on gamepad.
traduction
Okay, we
en
think this is
FR,
pretty good. We
bordel.
know there's some jank in there,
Pas pour le
but
online, je
like
suis d'accord,
the
mais...
general ideas are there.
Expert, on
And
ne
then
voit
they
plus.
throw it to, you know, sometimes they
On voit
throw
plus
it to
expert, il est
6
où?
experts. Or
Ah, ça
they'll
y est,
throw
on
it
a perdu
to
tout
a
le monde,
couple,
tout le
or
monde
they'll
s'est
bring in
barré.
like laymen from off the street who just, you know, they just signed up because
Non,
they
non.
like video games.
Qui c'est, il est
And
barré.
I can watch them as
Non,
they're
non, je
pressing
plaisante,
button
je dis,
inputs
parce
on
que
the
expert,
gamepad,
il
and
est
I can
plus
see
sur le
those lights
stream.
up. Like
Alors
if
je
they're
dis, ça y est,
having
on a
an
perdu
issue
tout le
with
monde, on a
like,
perdu
oh, they can't
expert.
access this menu, I
Parce
can
qu'ils
actually
Ah là,
viennent
il
do
tous
parle
sur le
something,
stream.
and they have
Ouais,
like
ils viennent tous sur le stream pour voir expert, en fait.
there, really
Ils veulent
parsing
voir
out
le,
like
ils veulent voir le
not
BG.
just like what are they doing, but like how do I ask
Ah
questions
non, il
Ah,
veut lui
attends,
toucher
in a
ça.
way that won't guide them
GTA
or
4, c'est un
prime
jeu
them,
qui
so
est
we can really
sorti
get like the
presque Day
purest
One
form of their
pour cette
experience out.
génération.
And
GTA
those
5,
end
quoi,
up being
GTA 5, tu
super,
veux dire.
super actionable. I love working
Et
with
qui
the
se vend,
Usability
ouais,
lab.
C'est
Yeah, that's been
exactement ça.
super
C'est
helpful
exactement
for
ça,
development.
Jackie.
I mean, it's
Il y a
been
Jackie qui dit
invaluable.
sur le chat,
Of course, the
Romain.
developer in us like always cringes when we see
C'est
a
pas
you know
faux,
a
c'est que
streamer
le jeu, il a
you know
10
hitting
ans,
a bug or
mais
we get
il est
kind
encore
of
number one.
we have to put something that's maybe still
Il est
partially
encore
raw
numéro
in
1.
front of the usability lab.
Mais tu
But
sais pourquoi il est
every time we
numéro
do
1? Je vais
this,
te dire
we
un truc,
just
c'est
get
parce qu'il n'y a
real
pas
world feedback
énormément de jeux non
coming in
plus.
from players that
Moi
is
je suis désolé,
super
en mode
invaluable
multijoueur,
because
t'as pas
they're
non
coming at
plus
this
ce
from
qu'on
a
avait
different
sur
perspective.
la
And we
sur
really
la
want our
Xbox et
game
la
to be
PS3, ce qui
playable by
faisait
a
qu'on
wide
avait
range of
énormément de
players,
jeux
not
qui
just
permettaient de
people who
jouer
are
en ligne.
hardcore
Mais moi
or
je suis
people who
désolé,
are
je
tuned
me
into the
retrouve pas.
franchise
Ouais, ok,
previously,
t'as
and we really
Fortnite,
want
t'as
to open
machin,
this
mais
up.
bon, ça faut
T'es
And
sûr
des
que
so
t'es pas
années.
being
fait-
able
Call
to
of
eh,
get those
Duty,
t'as
ça a
pas,
beaucoup
perspectives
perdu de
really
terrain.
influences a lot of what we do.
t'as pas
Yeah,
été
so-
Yeah,
fan,
there's a lot
t'as
of
pas été
ego
fan de Ghost
management that
Recon.
goes on. It's so tempting to go. It's not ready. It's not ready.
Bah, c'est
I'm
pas ça, moi
positive.
je voulais
Absolutely.
jouer,
Just
moi,
ace
à
this
Ghost
test.
Recon, mais
If you
c'est
just
vrai
gave
qu'à
it
un
like
moment
6
donné,
more
on a
weeks,
arrêté de
they won't
jouer, il
have
y a eu
any
les fêtes.
feedback. It'll be awesome.
Ouais.
But
Puis
who
après,
knows if
tout le
your
monde a
feedback
déménagé,
is the stuff you
machin,
would do
bon,
is
ça a
even
été
in the right
Moi je suis
compliqué,
direction.
là,
donc
So
c'est
hein,
it's like
arrêté.
you have to be like, I'm gonna
ça,
put
si tu
something
veux
crappy out
jouer
there.
à...
It's bad. I know it.
Bah, je sais que t'es
And
là.
that's the point. and you have to embrace that.
C'est vrai, j'ai eu ma
Yeah,
période
and so I
aussi
think we,
avec,
you know,
avec
I
la
always like
Nintendo
to say,
Switch.
and correct me if I'm
Ouais,
wrong.
t'as essayé,
début d'année.
Actually, let me
t'as vu la
ask you, do you
Switch?
think that game
La
development
Switch,
is
quand tu
more
l'achètes, tu joues
difficult, or
beaucoup,
is it
et au
easier
bout
now
d'un mois, tu
because
joues
of
plus
that
du tout.
constant one-to-one feedback?
Bah
You
moi
know,
je
prior
si,
to
je
this,
joue
you know, you
encore.
kind
Hein.
of had to put a game out and you had to see
Ça
what
m'arrive
people
de
thought.
faire des parties
Now, to
dessus
your point
encore.
of
Hein.
having
Mais bon, c'est
streamers,
pas comme au
you get
début.
their
Si je l'ai pris au début, j'ai joué à Zelda.
instantaneous
Beaucoup à
reaction,
Zelda.
and you don't know if it's like
Moi, je
Après, j'ai
pense que la
commencé à
mienne,
jouer
and what's actually true, or if it's
la
just
mienne, elle
as you
va
said,
les
a
tu peux jouer,
reaction.
Expert
à
You see
encore,
the
Animal Crossing.
development process
quand
in
t'as
that
perdu.
sense.
Would you rather get poked
Ah ouais?
with a nail
Bah non, je l'ai
every
pas
day,
encore, moi,
or have someone
Animal
break
Crossing.
your
Je
arm
l'ai
like at
vendredi
the end
Ah
of the
oui, ils ont
year?
pas voulu te le vendre.
It's like,
Ah, t'as vu,
it's like
Xbox One
getting that
Actu, t'as vu,
constant
on
Non,
feedback.
ils
It's
veulent
like
pas dire en
poking
magasin.
me, and then but I
Le
can
vendre
kind of
direct.
react to that feedback on the fly. And hopefully
Non
avoid
mais
like
mon grand,
you know,
moi j'ai un seul
in the olden
magasin
days, you
dans
put
les
it out.
30
Non, il a
It was a
30
Hail Mary
km.
that you
C'est
did.
ça,
Ah
hein,
ouais.
And then
ouais,
the
il y a
reviews
un
would hit on launch
intermarché à
day, and
30
you were like, oh
km
man,
où il
we
y a
made
un
something bad, we're
intermarché,
good.
alors
And I
je
didn't
cherche
really
pas,
have
j'y
a
vais
good
même
Tu vas
pas.
faire
gauge
ta
on that
petite
up until
autorisation
now.
Comment
pour
c'est
changer
Tesla,
Now
ouais.
you get
tu vas
like
mettre
a
Animal
lot
Crossing.
more pings back
Ouais.
from the
En croix.
audience, you know, especially because we've
Sur
released
le
big
chat.
back
de
games, so
gendarme.
we have people who are really
Alors que
passionate
si
Sinon,
and
tu te
t'es
fais,
constantly
eh,
kind of keeping us in
sinon, tu
check.
te fais
Hey,
livrer à
are these
Amazon. Hein.
features in? You know, it's not running on my computer or whatever.
Non, je voulais pas
And so
recevoir
that's
le
kind
colis.
of it's
Je me dis, on sait jamais
the
quoi.
Ah bah
olden
là, c'est
days you
pareil,
just
si
delayed that
si le
pain, and
mec qui a
sometimes
touché
it
ta
got
boîte.
worse. And now I think with the
C'est
feedback,
pareil.
your
Bah
ego
oui.
gets hit a lot more often.
Le mec, si le mec
Mais non,
il
mais
l'a mis
moi
en
j'achète
rayon.
pas,
and
moi
you can
j'ai...
actually like avoid a
Non mais
much
moi
Ah non, il a
j'achète
prend
pas
des
en
matchs, il a
magasin
prend
les
des
gars,
matchs.
j'ai
Ah oui,
été
tu as
chercher
acheté
sur
sur
le
le
Nintendo
store.
Store. Hein.
Feasible, honestly. It
Moi
makes
je prends... Ah ouais,
our
ouais,
lives
ouais,
easier
ouais.
in
Eh,
some
bah
ways
tu
and
sais,
harder
tu me
in
donneras
others.
ton
We
compte.
just released the beta,
Comme
like
ça,
Dave
je
was
pourrais
saying,
l'installer dans
and
ma console.
immediately we saw
Ouais,
some
mais tu veux pas
streamers
être fermé
hit some
toi un peu?
things that we're just kind of cringing about, right? But getting that feedback
Oh merde,
absolutely
je perds ma
helps, and
manette.
I think is critical in
Et
today's
d'ailleurs,
day
vous
and age.
attendez quoi de la conférence dans
Getting
le chat
fast feedback and
Vous attendez quoi de la
wide
conférence
perspective on your game is
Xbox?
hugely
En tout
helpful
cas,
to
ce qui est
shipping
sûr, c'est que chez
a quality
Xbox, on n'aura
product.
pas des
I think
carrés,
the flip side,
on
though,
n'aura pas des
personally, as
trucs. D'ailleurs, vous avez
developers,
entendu ce qu'il a dit, le gars chez
it's a bit
PlayStation?
of like walking the gangplank
Il a dit
a
qu'ils
little
avaient
bit in that
réduit
we're putting
la
something
vitesse
out
du
in front of people
GPU
that's not, you know,
pour
the
pas
shipping
pour
version
qu'elle
of the
fasse
game.
moins de bruit. En fait,
It's still
pour
raw,
une
there's
histoire
still
de
bugs, there's
puissance,
still rough edges, and
ils ont
you have
baissé
to
la
have thick
puissance
skin
pour pas
going
qu'elle
into
fasse
it
de
because
bruit.
you know
Ouais,
there
ben,
are
moi je
flaws
suis
still that
quasiment
are
sûr
and
que la
kinks that are getting
PS5
worked out.
ressemblera
À la
So
PS4.
I think we
à la
we need
PS4.
to
la même
kind of
boîte.
gut check ourselves
Ah
En fait,
ouais,
Ils vont
non,
pas
mais
se faire
je
chier.
vois
Déjà,
pas
le
ça.
logo,
En fait,
il
ils
est
vont-
pas
and
ils sont même pas
results
fait
better
chier.
for the game and better for players.
Yeah, and I
Ouais.
imagine
En fait, ils vont
communication
mettre
is part
5
of that, right?
pour
Like
le
really setting the expectations, especially in that beta
Ils
phase,
vont mettre 5
phase, I
pour la
should say.
PS5
So,
en fait.
what are
Ça va être la
other sort
PS5,
of
Oui, comme la
tools that
Pro.
you would, or maybe
Ouais,
Comme la
suggestions
Pro,
you
tu
get to
voyais,
small
de la
studios
simple à la Pro, tu
t'as
that can
rajoutes
help
trop
them as they get
de...
started in the
et
development
rajoute une
process?
couche.
I'll take the first stab at this.
Yeah, go for it.
So
C'est parce qu'ils ont les
one
acquis,
of
je te le dis.
something that's and this is
Ah ouais,
this
non,
happens
mais-
right at the start of
Mais
your
après, le
project, and it's
problème, c'est
something
que
that's
vous voyez
really
là,
easy
les
to
gars,
do. If you take a
les
game
gars, là,
designer and you
Sony,
lock him in a
les
closet
fanboys
for a
Sony vont
year
dire
or something,
oh,
and just give him like a word processor,
y a plus
he's
de bande
going
passante,
to
ça y
he
est.
or she is going to
Elle est
attempt
plus
to think of every edge case and solve every problem
Mais
ahead of time.
après, comme je dis, il faut pas oublier une
It's
chose,
really
c'est
kind of we've fallen
que
into this trap in the past. So I'm speaking from
il faut
experience.
parler
I've
au
done
grand
this in the
public.
past.
Je veux dire,
That you kind of
il y a des gens, bah
over-design
après voilà,
right
les
at the
gens
start
sont
of the
pas bêtes, ils savent
process.
que 12 c'est
Maybe
plus
it's
fort
because
que
you don't have
10.
enough engineers online
Mais,
or whatever the ramp-up process is.
Mais après,
And
en
then,
termes
and
de
then you have
puissance
this
et
grand
tout,
design that's ahead of
les
you, and
larges,
then you kind of
le
get
large
married to it,
public,
and then you insist that like, hey, none of your feedback is valid until
ils s'en
all of
foutent
my
de
concerns and
savoir
all
qu'il
of my edge
y a
cases and
tant de
all of my
GPU,
systems
tout
have
ça,
gone in.
il sait
It's
pas ce que ça
very
veut dire
easy to
tout
fall
ça.
into that trap
Bah
because you
d'ailleurs,
feel
la
like you've thought
conférence
through
de Sony, je
everything.
suis sûr que
When really
il y
the
a
best way to go about it
95%
is
des
like,
gens qui n'ont
what is
pas,
like,
qui ont pas
and people say this all
compris,
the time,
qui
but
ont
it's
rien
hard to stick
compris à
to.
ce
What
qu'il
is
a dit,
minimum
mec.
viable product? What is the
Moi,
what are
il y a
the core
plein de
pillars
trucs,
of our
j'ai
game?
compris
Like
que dalle.
in Wasteland, I need to be
Et
able
le
to talk
truc,
to
mec,
people,
quand
make
tu rentres dans les
decisions, and
Bah c'est
processeurs
pas
et
plus
tout,
mal.
you know, and you could do that
franchement,
to
je
a
voudrais
level, and
vraiment
until
Non, mais
those
regarde, même
elements
toi,
feel
parce que
good,
quand
it's
tu
like, why
regardes
are you adding a
Xbox,
crafting system? Why are
Xbox,
you
ils ont
adding,
modé sur la One,
you know,
voilà, ils sont en train de
customization system?
revenir
Why are
tout
you doing
fort.
all of this stuff
Mais
until your
comme
pillars have really
FIFA,
been
comme
solidified?
PES, tu vois,
And
à
then
l'époque
also
PES a
get a
fait, tu
minimum
vois, des
element
trucs de
in,
fou.
because the
FIFA,
path to
bah, ils
fun
vont se
might
border
look
à
a
un
lot
moment donné,
different
moi je
once
pense
you're
que
in it.
FIFA ça marchera plus.
Then, you know, you could build a basic shooter, but
il
there's
faut,
a really wide gap between
il faut à un moment donné, tu vois, se remettre
PUBG
en
and
question
Fortnite from
parce
like a
qu'ils ont
game
trop
systems
tendance à
perspective,
croire
from
que...
a feel
Non,
perspective,
puis
how do the guns operate, how does
comment
loot
dire,
drops operate, you know, all that stuff.
regarde,
And those two
expert,
games
pourtant,
feel wildly
il s'y
different
connaît,
despite being
il
in
s'y
the same
connaît
genre.
très bien en
But
informatique, hein.
you might not, like,
Il te
you
fait
might
un
implement
PC
phase
de
one
A,
of like, this is what I think a
il te
good
fait un
feeling
PC
gun
de A à Z
would
et
feel
tout.
like, and then that
Et
kind
expert,
of
sois
informs
honnête,
a lot of other
il y a plein
decisions
de
as
trucs
these
que t'as
knock-on
pas compris dans
effects.
ce qu'il
You know,
disait
how
le
the
mec,
gun
quoi.
feels informs how healing feels, informs how your classes are set up, you know, all of
Ah,
that.
Mais oui,
expert, il
So
est
it's
pas
really,
là.
it's not
on peut la
over-design
louper,
early
mais je
on.
crois qu'on l'a
Just
pu
get the
depuis
bare
un
minimum
bout de
and then
temps.
start playing it,
On
and
va
then
dire
start
ready
making
for
those
king.
smaller
Expert
decisions
se
along
fait
the way to
sucer.
creep
Ready for
towards
king.
something that is fun and make sure each
Lol,
iterative step that you're
king.
taking kind of makes the game
Je
progressively more
rappelle,
fun.
Bah
c'était
alors,
sur Bus Simulator. Oh putain, qu'est-ce qu'on a rigolé, sa mère.
Over the course of
Et sinon, tu
development,
passes
as
des
systems
infos,
get fleshed
tu
out,
bosses
as
quand même là.
developers add in these neat
Ouais,
ideas
ouais,
that come up
ouais,
along
mais
the way.
je suis tout
I
seul.
mean,
Hein.
it's
Eh,
dope
par
il me
contre,
reste
j'ai vu
quelques
business, right?
chantiers.
So my
par contre, j'ai vu
advice
ce que
is,
tu
even
mettais.
if you
Et
are
moi, je
trying
suis
to
comme toi, mais
build
ça
a
me
big
révolte,
RPG
putain.
kind of like
Les
this,
gens, ils
start
se baladent.
small.
Toi, bah,
Start
nous, on est à
smaller
la
than you
plage.
think you need.
Les mecs, ils se baladent sur la plage.
Expose as
Ils disent,
much
et je
of
dis,
your
mais.
game
Et le
systems to
confinement, le mec, il dit,
designers so
bah,
that
j'ai
they
le
can
droit, j'ai une
iterate and
autorisation.
tune and try
On
out
fait non, t'as le
crazy
droit
Non,
de
mais
ideas
venir
without
autour de
t'as
chez
une
taking
toi.
other
autorisation
departments
d'être.
down every
Oui,
time they
autour
want
de
to
chez toi.
see if
Voilà, c'est
something's
ça.
fun
Autour
or
de
Parce que
chez
les
not.
gens, ils sont à 3
And
km
just
chez
get the
eux, quoi.
game playable
Bah ouais.
as early as
Parce que
possible,
dans ce
playable
cas,
internally
excuse-moi,
by your
ah
dev
bah, je suis allé
team
me
so that you
promener
can have
sur
those
les
iterative
Champs-Élysées.
cycles and playable
J'ai le droit,
externally so you can get those
non,
perspectives.
t'as le droit
I
de
mean,
sortir
ultimately,
autour de chez toi, t'as le
one
droit
of
de
the things
sortir pour faire
that we've
tes
seen
courses,
true over and over
mais,
again is that
mais
90%
t'as
of the
pas le droit
polish
de
comes in
sortir,
the
t'as
last
le droit de
10%
sortir promener
of
ton
dev
chien et
time
autour de
because
chez
you
toi.
spend much of
Parce
your
qu'il y a
dev
des mecs
cycle
qui
just
vont
getting the
promener
game
leur
to
clébard
function,
à 3
getting it
km de
to
chez
work,
eux dans les
getting it to
forêts.
Ah
hang
ouais,
together,
ouais.
get all the pieces there.
Non,
Then
mais
it
ça va
doesn't
continuer
leave a
comme ça.
lot
De
of
toute
time
façon, ils
to
vont
polish.
rentrer
So
Non,
l'armée et
mais
anything
tout.
you
Ça
can
va
do
être
to kind of
confinement
stretch
total. Hein. Les
that
gens, ils
last
arrêteront de.
10% of the dev cycle, either by
C'est
pulling in
ça, c'est
iteration
ça.
Malheureux, mais.
earlier
Et
or by
non,
trying to
mais
stretch
moi,
things
moi
out
le
further,
truc qui me
that is
gêne.
directly going to
Attends,
impact the quality of your game.
FIFA, ils
And
vont
I
être
think
contents
that comes
cette année.
back
Ah
to
ouais, c'est clair.
iteration, getting the game playable early, and
Ils vont
keeping your
refaire tous les
focus
matchs
tight.
à huis clos, ouais.
Cool. These are some great tips.
Et
Like,
Ouais,
if
mais
I were a
c'est pas
developer,
drôle.
like these are the
Franchement,
tips
c'est
that
pas
I
drôle.
want to know.
Quand tu
ça,
vois
il y a
l'autre,
trop
il est
Deeper
reporté l'année
into
prochaine et
Wasteland
tout.
3,
Franchement, c'est pas
obviously
drôle.
strategy game. Let's
C'est
go
même
de toute
pas
façon,
very
si
specific to this.
là,
In the
là
save
pour
game
moi,
doc
de
that
toute
we
façon,
just
tous
kind
les
of saw,
championnats vont s'arrêter là.
you all talked about
C'est tout.
the
C'est
some of the
Paris champion,
fundamentals that
Marseille
you're trying to
deuxième et c'est
implement
tout.
as far as a strategy game
La
goes.
Ligue des
One
Champions, bah
example
écoute,
was,
on
you know,
fera
focus
j'en sais
on the
rien, un
actual
tirage
player's
au
turn
sort
because
avec des
if you
matchs.
focus on what the
Voilà,
enemy's
et...
doing, that can suck them out of
Mais,
the experience. What kind of
mais,
tips would
mais
you give
par
for
contre,
someone building a game that's similar to yours?
je sais même plus ce que je te
I
disais.
think there,
Des conneries
it's
comme
easy to
d'habitude.
get bogged down in
Si
the
tu parlais des
minutia
gens sur la
of, like,
plage
the
et tout.
mathematics of the game.
Oui,
You
les
know
gens
what I
sur
mean?
la plage,
Exactly
non, non, mais.
how our actions
Ouais,
spend, how
ouais,
much
non,
does
mais
everything
voilà,
cost, you know,
les gens sur la plage, tu leur dis.
but you really
mais tu
need
dois-
to
Ouais,
focus.
voilà. La Chine,
Like
ça fait 2
Wasteland, going
mois,
from
ils
Wasteland 2 to
commencent
Wasteland 3,
à
for instance, was a real
ressortir.
exercise
On
in
sait comment
figuring
ça
out
se
what
passe
were
en
the
Chine, le
fun and
confinement. C'est que
impactful
là,
decisions
en
the
Chine,
players were
t'avais
making,
pas le
and
droit,
what were
t'avais
the
pas le droit de mettre un
superfluous
pied
decisions the
dehors.
players were making. For instance,
Tu n'allais
do
pas
we
faire tes
require the
courses.
player manually
En
reload their
France, tout
weapons
le
at
monde
the
se
end of the
balade
turn? No,
tranquille.
it's kind of a
Dire
rote
si eux
action
ont
that
mis
we
2
can just
mois avec
automate
un
because
confinement
it's not a meaningful.
ultra
Like,
strict, nous avec le
RPGs are
confinement
about
de merde qu'on a en
decisions,
France,
but that's you can
au
kind
mois de
of take it at
septembre,
face
on y est
value and
encore.
just give people total control.
Ouais.
But then
Non,
you
mais je
end
crois
up
qu'ils se rendent
with
pas compte.
D'ailleurs,
it's
c'est
not
d'ailleurs,
Que
c'est
t'as
pour
quand
ça
même
qu'ils
like
presque
Arma, like
30 000
legit
cas
Arma
en Italie
has like
avec
110 little commands I
presque
can
pas loin de
control
3 000
every
morts.
aspect of my character.
Je crois que...
All of
De
those
quoi?
actions really
Qu'est-ce que t'as dit encore comme connerie?
super
Ouais, il est
impactful.
revenu.
Revoilà le
And
BG
ouais, ça y est.
for our game
J'ai dit
specifically,
revoilà le
like
BG
we want
expert.
to automate it.
Qu'est-ce qu'il est
A real decision that's going to impact the world or impact like the
Oh,
course
no, no,
of
no,
your
no, no,
character.
no, no.
So like another good example
Ready
is
for
like when a
day.
character goes down in combat,
Ready.
we're just going to automatically revive them at the end of
Oh,
combat
vas-y,
because
Romain.
at the end of combat
Il sait
there's
plus
no
quoi
time
dire.
pressure, so
Romain,
you're
il veut
just
faire
going to
moi, je
always
veux-
revive them
Gaston.
anyways, so can we just save you that effort so that you can really be focusing on decisions that
Romain, il veut
matter?
faire
Non, mais
du
c'est un
The
vrai
side
vote
effect
parce que
of
toi,
that
voilà,
is it
bon, moi
makes
j'ai
it
de la
feel
chance, ça me
like all
permet
your
de travailler un
decisions
peu à
matter
l'extérieur,
even
donc ça
more
te fait un
because
peu
we've made sure
sortir
the
de
only
l'idée.
decisions you're making are
Toi,
the
tu
ones
prends
that
l'air,
matter.
quoi. Mais quand tu vois
Yeah,
les gens qui se
absolutely.
baladent, qui
I
machinent,
couldn't
ils
agree
s'en battent
more
les
on
couilles.
that.
L'impression que
You
pour
just
eux, il n'y a
have to
rien
keep the
à...
player experience front and
Y a
center,
rien.
right?
Tu sais,
And we want the
c'est
player
un peu comme
experience
le
to be
lendemain
players making
de l'annonce
interesting
du
choices
confinement.
as much as possible,
Soyez
as
raisonnables.
consistently as possible, and then
Ils
seeing
étaient tous
reactions
dans
to
la
that.
rue,
And so
en
what you
mode,
have to do is, I
en
think,
mode
keep that
tranquille,
focus at all
ils
times.
étaient
Check
tous dans
the
la rue,
decisions,
Bronzage,
and
pépère,
be
machin,
ruthless
ouais,
about
bronzage,
editing
rien à voir.
out
Hashtag j'en ai rien
anything
à
which
branler.
doesn't further your goals and make that user experience
Et
better,
expert le beau
right?
gosse,
Non, mais en
tout le monde
Anything
attend,
that
tout le
you
monde
are
s'attend à ce que tu
developing
parles.
just because it's something you
D'ailleurs,
like
regardez,
is
il y a
built
expert au
Et
for
le truc, c'est que
that somehow
j'étais en train de
was a
regarder là.
holdover from
Du
previous
coup,
versions
FIFA,
or
ils
something
vont faire
that does not
FIFA
contribute to the player
2021
experience. It's
sans le
basically a
public.
tax
Donc
against your
le jeu va être
development
super
effort
beau.
that makes it harder
Bah,
for you to really
c'est ce qu'il
polish
a-
the things that do
c'est ce
matter.
qu'il a dit
So
Jackie.
I think
Ah,
just
huis
Ce qu'il a dit
clos,
Jackie, on va faire le jeu à huis
Ça va
clos.
être encore
what
plus beau
your
là.
design is of what your
Ça va être
game is
détaillé à
forming
mort.
up to be, and then
Ou sinon,
kind
ils,
of paring back and trimming out anything
reprendront les maquettes
which
de
doesn't help
2020.
support your
de
core
toute
goals
façon.
is really essential.
Bah, de toute façon,
Ils n'auront pas le
Yeah,
choix,
that's
ils n'auront
amazing.
pas
I
avoir
mean,
le
I feel
choix.
like the key word there is
de
meaning,
toute
making
façon,
sure everything's
FIFA
meaningful, right?
21,
Whether
ce
that
sera,
be everything in the
pour cette
development process
génération,
or
le
the
FIFA
actions
20,
that
ce
the
sera
players are
FIFA
taking, like
21,
making
ce
sure
sera
that
le
you're
même.
very
Ouais, bah oui,
deliberate,
oui.
which is
Sûrement,
fantastic. And so this entire
Moi,
thing
je l'ai
has been
même pas
about
pris, hein,
process, and I'd love if
le
we could end it on
ça sert à rien.
Si, il est bien.
so
Eh,
I just want to
n'empêche,
say thank you so
vous
much for joining
imaginez
us and kind of
aussi,
talking
il est
us through
très
this
bien.
process, because I think
Eh,
developers are going
n'empêche,
to be
vous
able to
imaginez un
take
peu
some really good
des
stuff
mecs
away
comme Neymar
as
ou
far as game
Marseille.
design and of course
Eh,
game
eh,
development.
pourraient pas les faire.
Again,
Des
thank you
mecs
so
comme
much for
Neymar
joining us and practicing
boitaient sur
social
le terrain.
distancing with us.
Ils boitaient sur le terrain.
We're actually going to now go over to Ricari and we'll see what he has. Who knows?
Ouais, à un moment, il y avait Florian Thauvin, on voyait pas les tout petits.
Ah, ils sont aussi pas connus, quoi. C'est pas trop petit ça.
Eh, par contre, vous imaginez Neymar, comment il doit être content, le mec.
Mange des bonbons.
Ouais, le mec il est en confinement, et il continue de toucher des millions tous les jours.
What you're saying on Twitter and Discord.
Putain.
You've been talking so much that our channels are truly excited. And we've collected a few of the questions that you've been submitting. And now it's
Enfin,
time
ceci
to
dit,
catch up on
avec
the
toutes ces
answers.
conneries,
So,
moi ce
let's
qui me
go
saoule,
through
c'est
this
que
quick.
on va
Talk
payer
to
cher.
straight in that.
On va
This,
payer.
this one
Parce que
came
là,
through.
les mecs qui te
I want to
sortent,
say Mysterious
400
Heart
millions
on
comme
Mixer.
ça,
I normally don't
400
like
milliards,
turn-based RPGs.
à un moment,
This
il va bien
looks
falloir les
Non, il y a
lancer.
300
Fully
milliards
agree.
pour
Who
les
knows what
entreprises.
sort of game that you would like?
Ouais,
Alors
45
que
milliards.
si,
Don't judge a book by its cover. Give it a
si
shot.
tu veux,
Let's
c'est
go
une
for it
avance,
together.
c'est une avance après
Let's
des
go
banques
through the rest of them. What do we get?
pour
I
dire
think
que si
XCOM
toi t'as
could
des
be the
crédits, des
most
machins,
massive
voilà, l'État ils sont
improvement
là
in gaming
à hauteur
history.
de
That's
300
right,
milliards
smart.
pour
This
les
is another
soutenir.
one that was in
Mais après,
Discord.
oui, il va
Et
faire
quand-
42 milliards pour
I found using the
juste
DirectX
le mois de mars,
toolkit
là.
to be a
Salut,
really
Sam
good
Sam.
learn C++ programming because I
Salut, Sam Sam.
already
Non
knew
mais c'est ça.
basically what it
Et
did
quand on
and how
pense
to
qu'il y a
use
des
it
gens,
because of previous
on n'arrive
experience
pas à
with
trouver de
XNA.
place pour ouvrir des
And then
centres
last
d'accueil
one,
pour
going
les
back to that
SDF
talk that we
l'hiver,
just
et là
had.
on trouve 300
A good
milliards.
quote,
Comme
a
ça.
great quote for real. Would you rather get poked with a nail every day
Non
or
mais
have
c'est
your
pas une
magique,
arm
question
broken
de,
at
c'est
the
pas une
end of
question
the
de
year?
milliards.
That's easy. That's a nail poke. I'm not.
Non, mais là,
I
c'est-
don't
Là
wanna-
c'est une
I don't wanna
garantie pour
break
les
my arm.
entreprises.
And I heard
C'est-à-dire
we have
que
a few
si demain
tweets that
tout
we
le
can
monde
actually get
pète la
thrown up on the
gueule,
screen.
là la
So let's
France
do
elle est
that and I'll read
foutue.
them out.
Mais à mon avis,
C'est pas une question
il y en
de...
This
à
one
mon
from
avis, il y en
Struck.
a
Did you
qui
miss
vont, il y en a
GameStack
qui vont
Live
rester sur le
yesterday? You
carreau
want to
quand même, il faut
rewatch
pas se
it?
leurrer.
Hit that link. Go check out the recordings. That's
Peut-être pas,
aka.ms/GameStack
peut-être que si on se démarre pas trop
on
mal,
demand.
Ouais.
parce que
Par contre,
si
ils ont dit un
l'économie
truc.
va
And our
repartir,
next
ça
one
va
here from
vite.
Death
Ouais.
Scratch.
Par
The
contre,
talk
ils ont
on
dit un truc.
accessibility
Ils ont
from
précisé
GameStack Live,
que,
including Gears 5 as
attention,
an
quand ils ont
example,
dit aucune,
we're great to
on laissera
consider in
aucune
future
faillite,
projects as a
ils
game dev
regarderont quand
developer.
même les
It's
bilans des
difficult adapting
entreprises.
for as many
Dire,
players
Oui,
ils
c'est
vont
ça,
pas
si
aller
la
sauver
bilan
une,
est dans
une entreprise qui est...
3 ans, elle va pas les
Helps
sauver.
inspire all of us to be more inclusive.
Voilà.
Thank you for that note.
Exactement. C'est
And this one from Select
entreprise
Starter.
viable, qui était viable.
Oui,
GameStack
c'est
Live
qu'ils
Instant.
ont
What it
fait
means
une
to run a
année
game
ou
studio
deux
conversation with
dans
Turn 10.
le
We appreciate you
positif,
for
on
sharing
va
that
dire
out.
ça qui
Voilà.
était
For those of
viable.
you that are watching at home, go
Moi
to
ça va, on
GameStack
vient de
J'espère,
sortir
Live
une
and
année
hit the
hyper
check it
verte.
out on GameStack Live. There's a link to the
Ça
Discord,
va.
and I'm sure we can get that thrown up on screen at some point too.
Ouais, ça
Join
fait
the
chier, on
conversation,
pouvait
get in there,
faire
we
le
want to
double de
hear
l'année
from you.
dernière.
Or
Ça
use
commence
that
à quelle heure?
hashtag,
Je suis arrivé.
Ça
reply
commence
to
à
the
quelle heure?
Twitter account we got set up. Get those
19.
comments and whatnot in.
Ouais.
All right. Well, now it's time for our first panel of the day.
Donc t'as le temps
First,
d'aller
let's check
sur
out this
Port
short clip
Hub,
all about audio
de taper une
design
petite
from
ginzette et puis
Nicole.
revenir.
Je connais pas.
Ouais, ça... Oh, le mec il a... Non, tu sais pourquoi il dit ça? C'est parce que le mec
t'as ta couille sur ton clavier depuis tout à l'heure, je le vois
but
sur le
there's a
Mais
lot
non.
of tech
Eh,
involved.
c'est
We
pas ça.
thought, you know,
Mais
let's
c'est pas
really
ça.
take this
Le mec,
seriously on
c'est
Gears
pourquoi il
5
dit
and
qu'il connaît
start
pas,
from
c'est
the
parce
ground
qu'il est
up
modo
with
chez YouPorn,
accessibility
c'est
in
pour ça.
mind. If you're gonna put sound in, make sure it sounds important. All of these questions started getting
Ready
asked,
for
like,
tea.
what is an important sound? Which sounds are
Moi,
should be
moi, je vais
higher
pas- moi, je vais pas me
priority
vanter,
than
hein. Moi,
other
je suis-
sounds?
moi, je suis
Gears
modo
of
chez
War
Jackie
is a very
Michel.
complicated game. There's a
Ouais,
lot of
on l'a
sounds
vu,
on
coming
l'a vu
at
au début.
you.
Salut,
And
Sam,
so
salut,
one of the things
Ali.
we wanted to do anyway
Ça
was
commence
to
à
make that
19h.
easier to
Ah, tu les vois les
understand.
trucs sur
So
YouTube?
we wanted to
Ouais, par contre.
assign priorities
Ouais,
to sounds and then give them
En
a
fait, il faut-
higher or
sur
lower
Xbox, tu
priority
peux activer
ranking
le
depending on
4.
how important it was to you. Even though it was a lot of hard work, the outcome would be much more
19h,
controlled.
et-
We work with our code
et on
team
peut déjà
to
vous annoncer
implement
que
features that
on ne
will
verra
help
pas
us with
que
our
des chiffres
mixing.
et des,
And so
des
based on
cubes.
the
Comme sur la
AI and
conf,
where you are in the
PlayStation.
game, we have these values that come in,
Enfin,
and
la
then we can
conférence, si
assign
on peut appeler
those
ça.
sounds from that particular enemy to be higher
Ouais.
priority. And they're actually
Mais limite, ils
some
auraient
of
dû
our
ramener,
priority mix
ils auraient
settings, so
dû
you can see
diffuser un
actually
PowerPoint
if I'm
et
in
puis
line of
voilà.
sight, that red arrow is on me. Some of these numbers here changing our user
En
count
tout
and
cas, la
priority
console,
settings. There's a lot of
moi
ducking
franchement,
going
ça,
on
le fait
here.
que ça soit
So that's
une
actually
mini-tour, on va
my
dire, franchement, ça
weapon
envoie
is
du
actually
lourd.
turning down
Ah,
other
moi, je la
Ça
trouve
sounds in the
complètement
magnifique.
game.
l'école.
People with
Ah ouais, moi je
you know,
trouve ça.
impaired
Bon, après,
vision
c'est sûr,
have
c'est
shown
fort.
that they can play Gears because
On
of
attend
this.
quoi? On attend
sombre,
que ça
There's
commence,
people
Sam.
that are actually almost blind that play
C'est
Gears.
On attend
voilà,
que ça
c'est
And
commence.
they
Xbox, hein,
use the
maintenant.
sound cues to let
On
let
aura
them
plus
know
de
where
couleurs
things are
sur,
coming
sur
from,
les
and it's
consoles, à part le
spatialized
blanc et le noir,
and
c'est la
coming
seule
from a
chose qu'il y
certain
aura, ou
direction.
sinon sur
It's a
les
bit of
éditions
tech,
collector,
a lot of software,
ils
a lot
font
of
comme Gears
code
2.
time, you know, giving
Ouais,
us
voilà. Ouais,
values
je
Et
pense
sinon
que
ça restera
Microsoft,
toujours noir et
the
blanc.
levels and volumes.
je
The
pense que
actual result of
Microsoft,
that is just
ils
that
vont
the mix is
continuer
clearer, it's easier to understand, and you can hear where things are
Microsoft,
coming
ils vont
from.
Parce que la
continuer
console,
à
les
faire
gars,
leur
elle
console.
s'appelle pas Xbox Series X, elle s'appelle Xbox.
Online services are
Série
an integral
X,
part
c'est
of
sur
the
les
next
prochaines
generation of game
consoles qui aura.
development. And here to tell us more, we have James
Tout le
Trott,
monde croyait
Christine
qu'elle
Ouais,
s'appelait
parce que
Xbox
Sportsman,
Series X, mais
and
elle
Jessica
s'appelle que
Jasanoff.
Xbox.
Thank you guys for being here and joining us.
Ouais, ouais.
Hello. Welcome to
Excellent
the
bleu.
Yeah,
dans
we
la
got all
demi-heure.
4 of you here, so please let me know if you guys have any other additional opinions if I don't call out to you. It might be, I'm afraid we're going to talk over each other a little bit, but let me know if you have anything that you want to add. But before we continue, guys, we want to hear from you, the viewers
Mais
at
c'est qui la
home,
bonne
and
femme
how
avec
you
elle a
have
des
harnessed
lunettes ou quoi?
the power of
Ah non,
online
c'est
services,
l'écran.
because that's what we're going to be talking
Si,
about
elle a des
today.
lunettes.
Please jump into
C'est pas
our
l'écran.
Discord and tell us all about it. Now, yesterday we discussed the state of the industry, and you
Putain,
can
mais
check
elle
out
doit
that
te
last
bouffer la
segment on our
bite.
YouTube playlist, including all
C'est
of
pas
our
la
segments that we've had soon. We're going to pick up from there, and I'm going to start this
Ready
off
for
right now
teen,
with
ready for
Christina.
teen.
Elle doit te
How are
choper,
online
j'espère qu'elle te la
services
chope
playing
pas
a
quoi.
role in the evolution of modern
Ready
game
for
development?
teen. Ready for teen. Ready.
Well, I think that they've been really impactful
Eh,
in modern game
comme
development.
expert.
It's not that
Change
you
de
just
18
play a
plus,
game and
mais à
play the
38
game for
plus.
10 hours and you move on to the next
38
game. It's elongating the life cycle of games.
Ah, moi je me lâche.
Players and game developers alike
C'est
are
bon, on a
expecting these
tes
games
petits
to last much
Après
longer
tu vas
and
entendre des
become
bruits
more
un peu
personal
Blabla,
to the
chelous,
player.
c'est pas grave.
James, I know I got to
Continue.
talk to you yesterday about live ops. I know more
Non, mais
about your
c'est
opinion
bon.
on how online services are playing a role in evolution. If you can just reiterate a bit more on that.
Yeah, it's exactly what we just been saying. That, as games become
Par contre, j'aime bien
communities
l'interview de la
where
nana dans
players
sa
are going to be
cuisine.
in there for the long haul.
C'est clair.
You've got it's
Ah,
not
c'est
enough
propre,
to
Julien
c'est
shut down
clean,
the
hein.
client
C'est clean là
and
quand
leave
même.
it
Je
there.
sais
You've
pas
got
qui
to
fait
have
le ménage,
engagement
mais
between
C'est
players.
il n'y a pas une tâche.
Ah,
hein.
par contre,
The opportunity to
elle a un
update
Google Home. Elle a un
and edit the
Google
game
Home.
on the fly, and all of that
C'est bon, il y en a
requires
une
things
qui a un
without the
Google
cloud
Home,
on
c'est bon.
service. Probably the
Est-ce qu'elle a un
biggest area
Stadia?
where people think about it first are for sure multiplayer games.
Oh, ça
Just
c'est
the
une bourre, t'as
technology
vu Stadia?
required
Salut.
to play against another
Alors
player.
par contre, je sais
You've got
pas,
to
je sais
do
pas comment t'appeler.
matchmaking. You've got to be able to manage chat conversations. You've got to manage all the moves so the players are
Salut.
coordinated.
Un
All of that's
expert,
going
oui.
to servers in the cloud and require those services. And no one wants to build those for themselves from scratch.
Franchement, la
You want to build
Stadia,
those
Pas
where you
de
can off-the-shelf tech that's proven and tested. Because when games fail on launch day, more often than not, it's because the servers just can't keep up with the load. Because it's the hardest thing in the world when you launch a new game,
C'est vraiment
and
pas
often your
ouf.
biggest
Moi,
day
sur
is the
tous
first
les
day you
chats
put it
en même
out there.
temps.
Et
James, try, is there anything else that you would like to
ouais,
add there?
bah moi je suis sur, si tu veux, moi
Yeah,
je
I think
m'occupe
services
de,
have kind of
du
extended the
Facebook.
lifespan of games for developers and changed the way the industry thinks about shipping games and shipping content.
Ah ouais,
Now
le gars,
with live
il a pas
services,
aimé,
developers are
il
able
a
to
pas aimé
create little
sur
micro
YouTube, il a
packages
pas
of
aimé Gears
content,
5.
stream them into their games. Even small indie games like Cake
Bah,
Bash
j'ai
or
trouvé
Celeste
vraiment
are
bien en
able
fait.
to make micro content
Bah,
tweaks
c'est un
or
avis,
small
je sais pas,
additions
mais
to the game over
Ouais,
time,
j'ai pas
trouvé
trop
which
plus
joué.
sympa.
On
substantially
a fait
increases
juste
the
une partie où
lifespan
on
of
s'est
that
pris une
game for
branlée
developers.
avec
Du coup, ça a fait un
expert.
game à
Yeah, I
sauvegarde.
definitely agree with you,
On a
James.
mis
And
3
again,
heures.
to
J'ai
Sportsman, this is
pas-
something that we were
j'ai
talking
même pas
about
avancé,
before,
en fait.
that lifespan of a game has really grown and
On a
expanded,
cherché
not
3
just
heures
with
pour pouvoir
multiplayer online
traverser
games, but with
un truc de
RPGs as
glace
well.
là de
And
merde.
Jesse, I want you to talk a little bit more about that.
C'était un
Why is it
bouclier
that
qu'il
we're
fallait
seeing
mettre. Oh,
more of these
putain.
games kind of adopt these online
C'est honteux.
services?
Well, I think I'll point out also, it's not just the
Bon,
live
normalement,
operations,
si tout
but
va bien,
even
ça
before the
commence
game
dans
is
10
launched,
minutes.
people are testing different types of
Ouais, si
content
tout va bien.
via ads and click-throughs with different audiences with tools like Facebook or other online ad networks. So people are getting a better read on what the audience
À
is
quoi
like
on va
or have
s'attendre?
affinity for. I also think
Du jeu,
as
du jeu,
people
du jeu, je
start
pense.
adapting games
Je pense
to
vraiment
different
que
surfaces
Microsoft,
like
ils vont
mobile, for
annoncer du
example,
jeu.
you see
Vu que
latency
Sony
coming
ont
unlocked
annoncé
as they
des
figure out
chiffres et des
better
tableaux
UX
que personne n'a
systems. And
compris.
those UX systems can be figured
Mais
out because
Ouais,
of
mais
the
non.
A/B tests with audiences to see what resonates, what makes people stick, when do they
Microsoft
drop off,
là,
all those things.
ils ont
So
déjà
I think
dévoilé
it's
leur
going to
console.
change how fast
Oui,
those
donc
Il y
ils ont
avait
plus du jeu.
pratiquement
platforms are
dedans.
reached in a way
Voilà,
that's
il n'y a
actually
plus du
delightful
jeu
to
de
customers.
l'exclus, voire du
Well, Jesse,
studio.
can you
Ah
talk
bah,
a little
Donc
bit
c'est
more
clair
about that,
que...
relying on
eux,
audiences
ils ont
a
du
bit
jeu,
more
ils ont
for
du
not
jeu à
just
vendre, ils ont
feedback
du
when
jeu à
the game
montrer,
launches,
c'est
but
obligatoire.
beforehand? How has
Alors
that
j'espère
changed?
qu'ils vont
How
pas
has
nous
developers
remontrer
communicated
la
with
vidéo
audiences
d'Hellblade, hein, on l'a
during
déjà
the
vu au moins
development stage?
383 fois.
Well, I think you
Mais
saw this early with like the advent, like gosh, maybe like a
et
decade
qu'ils vont
ago
nous
with
montrer
mobile
quelque
encore,
chose
games.
de
You know,
bien.
people could run really
Et
small
encore,
tests,
Hellblade,
and
c'est,
even without
c'était
gameplay,
vraiment
right?
au
Like you
plus
can have
poussé
an
de la
ad that
console,
goes
hein,
to a survey,
Hellblade.
and that
Ouais.
ad gives an
C'est ce qu'ils
expression
avaient
of what
dit.
the
Hein,
game
ils ont-
could be.
je sais
And
pas
if
s'il
people just
sortira comme
completely
ça à la
vomit on it, you
sortie,
don't have to waste your
mais
time
ils ont dit que
building the
c'était
thing
vraiment
because
le
you know people
rendu
hate
que
it.
tu pouvais avoir sur
Or
la
you can say, oh wow, like I have an idea that people like the game, but here's a
Xbox,
bunch of
quoi.
different variants of art styles that I
Là,
can
ils auraient
test with
pu
it. Which
lui
one
donner un
resonates with
nom
the
quand
audience
même
I'm
qui
targeting?
pète sa mère.
And
Putain,
then
fait
that can lead,
chier
like I
leur
said,
nom
to
à
a
la
survey
con
where
là.
you can get other information about what people want out of a of the game. I think you
Bah, tu
combine
sais,
that with looking at
après, ils avaient
verbatim
l'option de
feedback
l'appeler
with actually
Xbox
player
3.
behavioral feedback as
Qu'est-ce qu'il y
well,
a de plus con?
and oftentimes you'll see
Xbox Series X
discrepancies
ou
in what people say and
PS5?
how they behave. those are usually the most
Parce
interesting
qu'en fait,
cases.
t'as
Non, mais
where
ça
PS1,
you can
s'appelle pas
find
PS2,
out what's
Xbox.
PS3,
actually going
Pourquoi
on
tu
with the
l'appelles
community.
série X?
Parce que c'est
Christina,
une
how
série.
important is that for
Elle s'appelle
developers
Elle
to
Xbox
s'appelle
get
Series
that
X.
Xbox.
instant feedback? How does that
Voilà, mais
impact
c'est parce
development?
qu'il y aura
Ouais, c'est la
plusieurs
extrême.
consoles.
Yeah,
Série
it's
X,
kind
c'est
of like what
Ils
in
l'ont
extrême.
dit,
X-File
elle
was just
s'appelle
saying about
Xbox.
iteration.
Et
It's the earlier you can get that
X,
feedback, the
c'est
better that you can
les
make your
séries de
game for the
consoles qu'il
player
va
at
avoir
launch.
sur le
And
futur.
live
Sinon, sur les
services and a
il y aura
live ops game kind
il
of
y aura plus de
exists
consoles, il y aura
pre-launch.
plus de
You really want to
consoles
test and
prochaine
build those muscles
génération.
ahead of time.
Si eux, elle va
And
rentrer
getting
dans la gamme
players
du
in,
série
running
X.
those experiments helps build those muscles for developers as well.
Oh, même
James,
les
we're going
écouteurs,
to
je crois que
focus
le
on you,
casque,
but
il est
if
plus
anyone
gros que
else
sa
has any
tête.
opinions on this, please let
Mais
me know.
non, mais
At
c'est
a
le casque
high
Xbox,
level,
ça.
how would you define online game services?
C'est le
Ouais,
casque
bon.
Microsoft.
So
C'est
any,
casse Microsoft, il est
anytime
gros
the
comme ça.
game is
Ah,
reaching
mais elle a
out
une
and
bouche,
taking
lui, elle doit
advantage of
avaler.
code that's
Ouais.
not
On
running
n'entend
on the
pas,
game
Romain,
client
quand tu
or
parles,
running
ça
out
brouille.
either on a server or in a cloud, that's an online game service. Some services are provided by the platforms themselves. So if you're building
Et
a
ta
game for
connerie, elle
Xbox,
brouille.
you may be using our Xbox Live services, which provide things like
Ouais,
Pas
nous
sous
aussi,
un
hein,
tunnel
nous
and
aussi.
TVC.
multiplayer tech.
Nous aussi,
If
on préfère
you're,
Xbox, mais
you may be
après,
taking advantage of
on
services
aime
like
avant
PlayFab,
tout
which
le
are
jeu.
available across all
Comme
platforms.
nous
Ah,
disait
et le
Romain,
PlayStation
on
Eric,
a
là,
son
il est
serveur.
parti.
Or a feature where you can gather data from the
Il va nous
game.
reparler de
Eh
Last
non
of Us et tout. Attention,
And data
attention, on a
warehouse
le
and
droit,
cloud,
c'est
so
un
you
quart
can do
d'heure.
analysis and
Pas un quart
reports
d'heure.
to
Non, j'ai
help you
pas.
Non, il est quelle
understand
heure? Ouais, t'as
what
un
your
quart
Non, j'ai
d'heure.
players
pas.
are actually doing.
J'ai-
And then some game services
Un
use
quart
the
d'heure.
game itself.
Alors,
So,
j'ai un
for
quart d'heure
example,
pour
games
expliquer
may
que la
actually,
PlayStation c'est
multiplayer games
carrément mieux
especially,
parce qu'Xbox c'est
or
pas de jeu et
maybe
c'est de la
mobile
merde.
casual games may have code that's running in the
Non,
cloud,
mais
simulating the
c'est
game,
joué, je veux dire,
even when the player is not
Expert il fait son
connected.
malin, mais
So
il y
when you
a,
connect
il y a
back up
un an,
again,
il
the
disait
games
que God of
continue
War
to
c'était une
live
tuerie atomique,
and
donc
thrive. I guess
et God of
an
War
MMO
c'est sur
RPG is a
PlayStation.
great example of this, where the whole world is continuing to run,
Il y a des
even if the
jeux,
player's
il
not
y a des jeux
connected to
sur
it.
tout en fait,
Right,
il y
that's
a
true.
des
That's
bons
true.
jeux
Anyone
sur
else
tout.
have any other opinions on
Ah,
a
mais on
high
n'aura
level
pas
Et
les moyens d'acheter
example of
toutes les
online
consoles.
services?
Non, mais au final,
No,
dans
I'm going to
cette
take
guerre
that as
des
a no. Good.
consoles, c'est
James
qui le
Scott,
grand
I
gagnant?
want to know a
Eh
little
ben,
bit
c'est le
about
PC.
game streaming. Is it a service or is it kind of a separate
Ouais,
Parce
mais c'est
que
pas
platform?
une
That's
console,
a
un
lot of
PC.
questions
Tu
that
peux
gamers
pas
are asking
Ouais, mais-
recently.
considérer
And how
PC
does
comme
this
Oui,
une
mais
change how
console.
developers think
avant,
about game
avant le
services?
PC,
Sur la manette, tu peux tout faire.
I think it's
avant
both
les
dependent on how developers
bah ouais,
want to
non mais
consume
avant
it
les
and integrate it
consoles
with their game.
n'avaient pas les jeux PC
Originally, streaming was very definitely sort of a
et les
separate
PC n'avaient
service,
pas les jeux
more
consoles,
of a
tandis que
media
là
service where
maintenant
you're
on
able
a
to
un
stream
petit
gameplay
peu de
and
jeux
things like that.
PC
But you're
très
seeing
légers
developments now
sur
in the
console,
industry, and
mais
it
eux
kind
ils
of started
récupèrent
with
toutes les
Mixer and their
exclusivités
mixed
qui
play
étaient sur console.
functionality, where they were able to
Là il y a
bring
Horizon Zero Dawn
interactivity
et vous
into the
verrez, hein, ça se trouve
platform
dans les
where
années à
viewers
venir,
can
on
interact
pourra
and
jouer à
J'ai
n'importe
acheté
quel
together.
Super
There's
Mario.
this game called the Darwin Project
rénovation de
that
maison là
allowed
où
you
ce
to
Flyper.
Ah,
c'est
give
House
ça
Flipper,
power-ups,
mais
some
c'est une
bonuses and
tuerie ça.
awards to your favorite
Ah,
players
je l'ai
in an
fait, ouais.
arena kind
J'ai
of
joué.
brawler. And that brought a new
Mais
level
bon,
to
tu
building
tournes vite
community
en
for the
rond,
game
quoi. Je veux
and
dire,
let the
c'est pareil. Tu
viewers
peins, tu
interact with
refais,
the
tu
game
casses
even
des
before
Moi
they
j'ai
ever
déjà,
played it.
Faut
moi
avoir
j'ai
un
déjà
bon
Their
vendu,
favorite
argument.
j'ai
streamers
déjà
and grow the
vendu
community
16
around that
maisons.
game.
Jesse, I want to ask
Ah
the
bah
same
moi je suis dans
question to you
l'équivalent.
about streaming
Ah,
services,
c'est
or
c'est
is
bien,
it a
t'as vu,
separate
il y avait
platform?
la maison de Maman, j'ai raté l'avion.
I actually think it's a complicated
Avec
answer.
les
In
trucs
the one
de Noël et
hand,
tout,
if
c'est
you're
cool,
streaming
franchement.
from a
Ouais,
wrapped
la
Xbox
plus
or
grande
something
là,
like
celle qui a
that,
300 et
it's
quelques.
really
Ouais,
just
la plus
programming to
grande,
the same
ouais,
surface.
100
However,
et quelques, ouais.
the
Ouais, elle est
consumption
chère,
of that
mais
output is being
il n'y avait
consumed
pas
on a
beaucoup de travaux
screen
dans
that
celle-ci. Celle-ci, je me
could
suis
be
pas
something
fatigué,
completely
je l'ai
different than you're
acheté,
prepared for. So think
j'ai
about things
réparé
like
les
font
prix, j'ai
sizes and other
nettoyé,
things,
je l'ai revendu.
usability, a
J'ai
touchscreen
gagné
versus like
200
a
Ah, mais
000
moi
balles.
aussi.
Allez hop.
Ouais, mais moi
in a
c'est
console
pareil.
environment, it's a very
Par contre, il y a
controlled
des maisons, des fois, moi je, tu sais, je me fatigue
experience,
vraiment à
right? You
modifier,
assume the
tu sais,
person has
casser des
control, you
murs
assume
pour
they're
faire des
connected
plus
to a
grandes
television.
cuisines et tout.
I think with streaming, while
Ah,
plus
mais moi
grande salle de
technically it gives you
bain.
more
toujours les
reach for
cuisines
your
ouvertes
sort
et
of
tout, c'est moi.
technical
Je me
effort,
fais même pas chier.
you still have to consider the UX box, and that
Et
also
la,
opens up
la
a whole
maison
other
que j'ai
can of
gardée
worms in
pour
terms
moi,
of like
c'est
how do I
celle où il y a
acquire
la voiture
customers.
dans le garage.
In a traditional console game,
si par
especially box
exemple,
retail, is
il y a les
just brand
sous-titres
marketing, right?
français.
Now you can actually buy ads on the console, but once you're streaming to mobile devices and mobile endpoints, if you think about the ad ecosystem there,
Moi, je vois
performance
pas de
marketing,
sous-titres en tout cas.
it opens up a whole
Non, il y
new
a
way to
pas, non.
acquire customers that can actually play your game now almost on any endpoint.
Non.
So the idea that you can
T'es
reach
bien
a
sur
massive
le,
amount,
t'es bien sur le
massive number of
mixeur
more people
Xbox
and
français.
have actually a way to engage them through performance marketing is actually going to be really, I think,
Non,
interesting in
moi je
its
suis
impact
sur
on the
le
industry.
truc
Christina, is that why-
GameStake
Oh,
Live
sorry,
Day
please.
2.
Ouais,
Moi
c'est ça,
c'est.
I think another way in which game streaming
Ah
services
non, moi,
like xCloud
non, moi je
is
suis
game
sur
changing, we haven't really anticipated yet,
YouTube,
is actually on the
Xbox
iteration
One
and
X.
testing
Ah, c'est
side.
bon ça.
So we were just talking about
Le mec,
the
il est...
last session,
Ah, le mec, il
talking
est très
about how
corporate.
important iteration and speed of iteration is.
Ouais.
And
Il
actually,
m'a
when
dit
you're
il
building
avait
console
un
games
boost,
today, one
mon
of the
gars, mais
slowest
laisse
parts
tomber.
of the,
Ça
or one
prend
of
le
the slow
bonheur.
parts of the pipeline is getting your game up onto your console so you can test it, you know, downloading the bits and uploading them every time you make a small change. But if you imagine streaming where you're building your game in the
ready
cloud
for
and playing it
ready
off the
for
cloud,
Non,
you can potentially speed up that iteration
pas
time
dit,
and give the
Jérémy,
game
mais le
creators
book
even
a...
faster feedback loops while
Ah,
they're building
yo,
new content. And I think
c'est
we're only
quand il
scratching the
met le
surface. We're
nez
just
dans la
now starting
chatte
to
à sa
realize
femme, il
how that notion
récupère.
of streaming off the cloud services to play, not just build,
Ready for
Ouais,
this.
d'accord.
Ready for
Oh,
this.
please, sorry again.
There's a lot of other different things,
Ready,
just to build on what James was saying. I
ready.
think
Non, mais
when
je
you
veux
often
pas
have
plus
different
loin.
versions of your game in the wild, whether it's because of an A/B test or because you have a critical update,
Expert,
you don't have to rely on users to update their client. Once you update the cloud, it's it. It's updated for everybody. So that actually makes it a much more controlled environment for devs in a lot of ways.
Well, James, going back to what you were saying, like this is really just the beginning of online streaming for the cloud. What can it go bigger from here?
Tu l'as pris quand
Moi,
même?
je l'ai pas pris.
I think one of the big questions is starting to look at truly
Battle
massive,
Royale.
massive
Bah, c'est
games.
gratuit.
So one of the areas
Warzone,
that
il est
I
pas de te dire de le
often
télécharger.
Le BR, il est gratuit.
Ah ouais?
have opportunities around
C'est
these
gratuit.
open world
Ouais,
gaming. And so you look at a game like Red Dead
Le
Redemption.
BR. Hein.
The team that
Ah,
built the
mais
game
Pas-
spent
pas-
an
j'ai
pas
joué,
enormous
faut que je
amount
regarde.
of
Call of
love,
Duty
blood,
Warzone.
sweat, and tears
Pas War-
building
Ouais,
the
c'est
world for
Warzone.
Red Dead Redemption.
Voilà,
And it's
pas
essentially
le
being
jeu
used
qu'on
now
a
Ça
for
fait
fait
une
le
semaine
dernier.
qu'on
Hein.
te dit
Pas le-
viens,
starting to ask
Oui, mais de
yourself,
toute
what
façon,
can we do
j'aurais
in that
pas
world
acheté le dernier.
and open it up
Tu
as
viens
almost
pas,
a
on dit
platform where
putain.
other games
Ouais.
can be built inside the
En
world.
plus, on va pouvoir jouer à
of Red
5.
Dead,
putain.
On va
that
pouvoir jouer à
will
5.
become almost
Comment
like,
tu
like
parles?
world as a service.
Ouais.
We have a new flight simulator game coming out later this year, in which
C'est
the entire
gratuit, tu peux
world you're
prendre, là.
flying around
Tu
in
dépenses
Et
pas
n'empêche,
assez.
is actually done through machine
Et
learning
n'empêche,
algorithms building off of
et
satellite
n'empêche,
data.
vous avez vu,
So we
il
actually
y a,
are
il y a- il y a
flying
quand
your
même un
airplane
gars dans le
through the
monde, dans
real
l'industrie du
world
jeu vidéo.
as
Le
recreated
mec,
from
il
satellite
était
imagery.
number
I
one
think this
chez
notion
Nintendo.
of vast new
Régis
areas and
Fils-Aimé,
worlds that we can play in is
il
going to
a
be really
arrêté
interesting, and
Nintendo,
that's
il
a
s'est barré
service
pour aller chez
that we
qui?
don't
Chez
have today.
GameStop.
Game world as service we haven't yet seen. I think we're going to start to
Une
see that.
enseigne qui n'existera plus
Christine, I want to know your
dans
opinion
2
on
ans.
game streaming as a
Mais
service compared to it being a platform and how
parce
it's
que là,
been impacting
Micromania, ils étaient pas
the
bien
game industry recently.
avec le coronavirus.
Yeah, I really agree
Ils
with
vont être
James.
encore
Where
moins
I think
bien.
it's a bit of both, where it's definitely
Parce
a
que là, les
service
magasins, ils font
that we
zéro.
provide, and it's also a platform for new developers or for a different way for a
Vous avez
developer
vu, il y en
to
a
reach
plein
a
aussi, il y a
different
plein de
market
magasins
or a
qui
different
feintent.
platform. It's building for
Il y a
mobile when
plein
you
de
might not
magasins
have
qui feintent,
necessarily
qui
had
restent.
that as a platform previously. So I think going forward, it's thinking about and also kind of what Jesse was
Tu
saying of
m'étonnes
how
qu'il y ait
quickly
une
you can
panne
access it. So I think it's both. It's
Nintendo,
about
le
building
service
for
Nintendo.
platforms you might not be used to
Ouais,
as a
Il y a
voilà.
tellement
developer,
de monde
but
sur
it's
les
also
réseaux.
about thinking about how
Il y a
quickly
Jackie qui dit que le
players
son de la
can
vidéo est
access it.
plus
And what does that mean
fort
for player
que
behavior?
nos
And what
voix,
does that mean for the games you're
que
making?
ta voix,
Have you seen
expert.
changes in player behavior?
Quoi, il aime pas l'américain?
Not me personally yet, because I'm still really new to the game streaming
Non, c'est
side
pas
of
ça,
it.
c'est parce que je crois qu'il
Game
n'entend pas ce que
services,
tu
though,
dis.
it's definitely been change in player behavior about even in player
Ah, c'est
expectations
vrai, il y
for
a
live games.
Voilà,
I'm interested to
normalement
see
ça
how
devrait
that
être bon là.
evolves as
simulateur,
game
le truc
streaming
d'avion, ça serait bien
becomes
si c'est
broader.
sur la
Well, then
X.
let's talk
Well,
a
the
bit more
biggest
about.
change, and then one
Ouais,
change
bah
we
là,
see
il y
in consumer
a
behavior is you no longer have to download and install the game
t'as-
to play it. And so
t'as
the
Ace Combat
ability
qui
to
va arriver dans le
basically
Game
go
Pass,
from a friend and
petit
saying, hey,
Romain.
I'm playing this new
Ace
game, it's
Combat,
great, check it out, to basically saying, oh, I'll try that out, taking the
The Search
invitation,
Non, mais
deux.
tu
one
sais qui
click,
me
and a
tâterait
few
bien,
seconds
là,
later,
le
you're
petit
playing the
jeu
same
là,
game,
d'avion.
no
Là.
install
Lequel?
time.
Ah,
Ah,
Flight
Flight
Simulator
Simulator,
will
ouais.
change
Ça serait bien.
consumer behavior,
Ouais.
and it will start to make
Non,
it
mais
easier
ça, c'est pas
to
qui
ouais.
peut
grow a
arriver.
new audience
C'est pas qui
around
peut
the
Il va
arriver, c'est
arriver
qui
sur
va
I
arriver
Xbox.
sur console aussi. Bientôt sur
Ouais,
Xbox,
ouais.
c'est acté.
how streaming is
Ouais,
changing
ouais.
the
C'est acté,
development
hein.
Sur la
experience.
série X.
Now there are a
Ah,
lot
et
of
ce
work
sera...
from
Ouais, mais
home
peut-être
Ouais,
plus
c'est
tard.
ça.
Si, à la
Ouais,
sortie.
pas à la sortie.
COVID-19
Non, à la sortie.
virus. You start
C'est
to
À la
PC,
realize
sortie,
dire.
bah si.
that
Ah, c'est à la
dev kits
sortie,
are
ouais.
often
Ah oui,
Pas
bah
les
le
PC,
jeu, bah,
hein, moi,
le jeu, ça
move
fait 2 ans
around,
qu'il le montre,
hard to bring
donc
home with you.
il y a un
And
moment,
so
il faut
world
qu'il
C'est
where
des
soit
you're
Français en plus
possible.
qui
more
l'ont
and more
développé,
developed
donc.
in the cloud, you start to make it easier to have a remote team and or be working from home, which is
Bah,
something that,
on a
you
pas
know,
fait des merdes,
say we may have to
heureusement.
think more about in
Ouais,
the
il est
future.
bon quand même. hein.
James Trott, I
Well, it's not
want
even
On n'a
just
pas qu'Ubisoft.
Sorry,
I was gonna
guys.
say, it's also,
Ça,
labor
ça change
markets are also
Ubisoft, hein,
inherently mobile.
avec
Pour une
leur
fois
So
que
bug.
enabling you
Microsoft
to actually
se
access
fait
talent
C'est rien,
from
Ouais,
around the
mais-
world
français, c'est pas
actually
mal.
makes this a lot easier too.
But James,
Ouais.
I want to go
Mais
back to
après,
about what James G was
après,
saying there, that the difficulties that
moi je
game
dis,
developers are starting to
il faut
see
pas
there.
cracher
What
sur, faut pas
difficulties have
sur
you seen?
Ubisoft parce que Ubisoft, ils sont quand même
We've covered a
dans
lot
le top
about
3
the
des
test cycle
développeurs et
and
ils sont
things like
français.
live streaming
Et c'est
allow
pas le
that
problème,
Quasiment-
Ubisoft.
dev
Ils
test
font
to
quasiment
kind of go
aucun jeu en
around
France,
much
mais
quicker. James is right with the
Non, mais Ubisoft, c'est pas
availability
le
Ils sont
of
problème.
français.
Moi, je suis
dev kits.
content pour que ce
And
soit
with
français.
the number of
Le problème,
platforms that are
c'est qu'ils ont
introduced through
50
game
jeux au même moment,
streaming,
donc
whether
ils
that's
ont
mobile
tendance à tellement
devices,
sortir de jeux
consoles,
qu'ils
handheld,
font pas vraiment
PCs.
attention à
It's
régler les
expanding
problèmes,
the
tu
test
vois.
and
Je sais pas
developer
s'il y en a qui
surface.
ont
One of the
Voilà,
cool
pas
things
pour
about the
certains.
service
mais
being
il y a
part of that streaming experience and available through the
God
cloud
of
is
Duty qui est
we
gratuit sur
exist in
Steam.
this world then of
En
kind
passant.
of develop anywhere, and so
attendant.
the development experience becomes develop where you want, using the tools you want. You can even develop in the cloud
Mais quoi,
and have
God of
real-time
bah, tu
feedback
l'as
to a
testé
streamed
alors,
instance of your game.
Animal Crossing.
So you're able to effectively
Ouais,
live
il a fait un
debug or
stream tout à
live
l'heure.
edit and fine-tune
Ouais,
aspects
mais
of
moi
your
je l'ai pas
game
vu, tu l'as
thanks to
trouvé
that
comment
streaming
alors,
service,
Yo
coming straight down to your test device.
C'est Animal Crossing en fait.
Animal Crossing.
Il demande.
C'est plus ma fille
Ouais,
qui joue.
c'est Animal Crossing en fait.
C'est ce soir,
Ouais,
ce
d'accord,
soir, je
ouais,
vais
mais
peut-être
par
faire
rapport au
le
danger.
live de Resident Evil 3. Peut-être, je vais réfléchir.
Jesse, I want to start with you.
The collaboration, keeping on track. I
Parce
think
qu'en
it's
fait,
also
il est
about
disponible.
how
En fait,
many
la
tools you
démo est
have
disponible.
right, for communication. Do you have live video? A lot of communication deals with
Mais vous
looking
l'avez
at
pas
body
acheté.
language,
Non,
microtransactions,
pas encore.
interface, tone,
On va d'abord tester la démo.
and actually the words you say, right? So voice or text, you just have
Ça
the
y est, il n'y a
words.
plus de
With
sous.
voice, you have
Bah
tone.
non, regarde pour la
You
série
know,
X.
you have some notion
Ça va
of
coûter un
like
bras,
seeing.
donc.
So I think there's so much
Bah ouais.
information that's conveyed that you're missing out on if you don't have
Mais
like a
avoue que ça y est,
physical
vu
view
qu'il
of the
travaille
person.
plus, ça
I think
commence
that's
à
the biggest
serrer les
challenge. And I
fesses.
think, like, you know, I always say, I said to someone yesterday,
Bah non, bah
if I was
il bosse
just
ça.
writing code, I'd probably be twice as productive.
Bah oui.
Ah ouais
Ah bah,
and,
moi toujours.
and if I have to have like a
Tu bosses dans quoi toi?
Dans un
people,
EHPAD.
schedule them and get them in with connectivity and stuff, it actually makes things a little more challenging.
Ouais.
So I think
Ah
that's
ouais?
that's how I
Dans
think
un
about it.
Donc lui, il a de
I
l'avenir.
definitely have to agree. This interview alone for me has been a bit challenging, trying to figure out who's going to talk
Eh,
next.
sinon, elle commence quand
Christina, have you seen
leur
any
conf?
challenges recently with what we've been going on with the self-isolation and working from home?
Yeah, I think it's a lot what Jesse was commenting on as well about how it's really difficult to take dev kits home, and
Elle
so
commence quand
therefore
leur
playing the
conf?
game regularly and iterating
Bah
on your
là,
software
normalement,
can
ça
be a
va
bit
commencer
difficult.
parce que là, les
It's
chauves,
about
elles
that
commencent à me saouler. Les
collaboration.
chauves, en
Game
général, elles
development,
me
software
saoulent.
development is very collaborative, so you don't have that face-to-face interaction with the partners on your team as much. And playing together quickly and working together quickly is very important, and that can be
On va
disruptive
devoir
from
ban, hein,
working
ça
from
va
home.
plus. Il dit que
James
les
Strong
chambres
asked you the same question, but I also want to ask a second part to this: that have you seen any benefits from working from home?
So one of the biggest challenges is remembering to maintain those touch points and collaboration points that you would normally have
on a
with a team
remarqué.
when we're physically co-located
C'est avec son
or
casque
we're
que t'avais bien
scheduling
envie de
meetings
faire
or
des
we're meeting
choses.
regularly. There are a lot of kind of touch points and water cooler moments where you might
Associé au
sync with
Peggy
somebody or
18.
exchange information almost implicitly. As you move into this
Non, c'est
distributed
Peggy
remote
69.
world,
C'est pas pareil.
that kind of goes away. So you have to remember to reinforce things like daily stand-ups, take time to connect with team members, over-communicate,
Non,
and
mais nous,
really
il est en
share as
retard.
much
Je crois
information
qu'il
as
a un an,
possible
quand il décalé
about
sur
what's
le-
going on in the project, what's going
Oui,
on
mais
with
il y
you.
a des
You have
gens
to kind of
ici
proactively project that
possèdent
and
Oui, ils ont la
into
paix.
Je sais
however
qu'on
you're
devait
collaborating
faire
with
le
maybe
stream, mais
Microsoft
bon, on l'a
Teams.
pas fait encore. Bon, ça
In
commence dans
terms
3
of
minutes
benefits, I
normalement.
think Jesse
Ouais,
kind of hit the nail on
19h30
the
tu m'as
head.
dit. Je suis sûr que c'est
There's also a
19h30.
lot of implicit
19h30.
disturbances that happen
Ah, c'est
in the
déjà là.
Sur le
workplace.
mail
People coming by to
Microsoft,
ask
19h30
questions
c'était
ad
marqué.
hoc. And it really gives you time to kind of
Parce que
focus and engage
Julien
with the
fait
work
chiasse,
and crank out a
Julien
lot
chiasse,
of
quoi.
code
Il fait
and do a lot
chiasse.
of building kind of work by yourself.
Il
Thanks
a
to
dit,
that kind of
il a dit
isolation and
19h.
that clear boundary.
James G, do you feel like you have less
Bon, alors.
distractions now, or do you feel like
Moi,
this
je me suis fait
isolation is a
strike de
bit more
sa,
of a
je me suis
hindrance?
fait strike de sa
Well, I
vidéo,
think,
donc.
you know, the joke going around is all my friends who are introverts are loving this, and my friends who are extroverts are hating it. And I think there's truth to that. Those of us who are in collaborative roles
Je me suis
are
fait
basically
strike.
having to be in video calls all day long, and it's definitely more taxing than being able to sit in a physical room with people and have a meeting. But those of us who are individual
T'as fait
contributors
strike
and
de
are
quoi
having to
de...
basically close the door and just crank, you know,
Sa vidéo,
are
parce que j'ai
really feeling
demandé,
more productive.
vu
I
qu'ils
do
étaient à deux
think
en
those
stream et qu'il y avait un
importance of
confinement, qui
daily
s'occupait
huddles
du
and
gamin.
those social get-togethers.
Oh,
And, you know, some of my teams have actually been getting together
Sur,
once a day to get on
Julien
the phone
Chies.
and just chat about stuff, no work talk allowed.
Ah
Because those are the
putain.
kinds of informal
Toi t'es
chats
bon
that are
toi.
not happening. Back at PopCap Games, when I used to work there,
Ready
we had
for
some
kids.
key designers who were off-site. And one of the side benefits is
Ouais,
it
mais il a
forced a
tendance à
lot
le
of
saouler,
the
lui, maintenant.
key design discussions to happen through text
Franchement,
chatting, which meant there was a
Non, mais
historical
de toute
record.
façon, il
Le
faut pas se
soir, avec
leurrer.
Carole
Moving to
Catel, tu
remote
sais qu'elle a
work
pété un
is it
câble parce
forces
qu'elle a
all
pas
of us to
été
use tools that
reconnue,
have
comme quoi,
Oui.
quand elle faisait les carreaux vus et tout. Non, mais
Ouais,
la
ouais,
blague,
ouais.
on s'en bat les couilles, quoi.
And we may find
Ah,
that
mais
there
connu.
that actually could be a benefit
Ouais, mais
versus
tu vois aussi,
when you're
quand
all in
t'es
the
aidé
same
comme
office,
eux,
you can also
dire,
cut
tu
corners
sais,
and maybe
demain,
not
demain,
document
nous,
or
on a,
capture
on a,
some of
on
the
a
key
notre
discussions
page.
you're having.
Si on a
James
tous les
Scott, what would
éditeurs
you
qui
say are
commencent à
some
nous filer des
examples of
Xbox à
games
faire
that are
gagner,
using
des
online
PlayStation,
services really
des
well
Switch,
today?
des jeux, des
Well, we saw a lot
collectors.
about it yesterday, but for me,
Eh,
one of the
notre
kind
page,
of best in
on
class
va
examples
avoir
is Sea of
200 000
Thieves.
abonnés.
They've really taken live ops and
Parce que
analytics
entre
to the
nous,
core of how they
le
build
gars,
and
tout le monde dit,
maintain their
il
game,
a des news,
how they
il a des
balance
news.
their economy,
Il
examine
a
player
annoncé
behavior,
l'été
and how they
2012,
evolve that
pas
next
dernier, mais
generation of
notamment,
content for the game.
ouais, il a dit
End-to-end, Sea of Thieves
non, mais
uses
il
gaming
avait
services
annoncé,
to enrich
il
the
avait annoncé, il dit, moi
experiences
je
for
vous
the
le dis,
player.
la Switch Pro
real time in
arrive
the game that
très
they're
très vite.
playing and in every
La
iteration
Switch
of
Pro, c'était une
content that
Switch
they
Lite, hein.
produce and publish.
Donc c'était pas une Switch
Christina, is
Pro.
there any games or developers out there that you
Selon mes
see
sources,
using online
ouais,
services really well?
la
Yeah, well,
Switch
he
Pro
stole my
sera
answer.
là.
I was going to say
Bah,
Sea of
non.
Thieves, but I also think Supercell, which is mobile developer of Clash of Clans, they do a
Ah,
really
des
great
choses à
job
raconter.
having
Non mais
live
après,
services
je vais te
embedded
dire,
from
la
the very
Switch
beginning
Pro,
and
ils ont
embedded in
vraiment
their
pas
studio.
réussi
voilà,
à la
Jackie.
sortir alors qu'elle marche super
James
bien.
Gwertzman,
ça,
this is
Jackie.
actually something
La
that we
Switch
wanted to
en
talk
elle-même,
about
elle
yesterday, but we
marche
didn't
très
have
bien
time
la
to talk
Switch.
about it. But I think that we can
Moi, je
kind
vois
of
pas
follow up
l'intérêt
with
de
this
sortir
question
la
here.
Pro.
Is that it seems like
Bah
different
si,
genres
parce
of
que
games
Bon,
use
Mario,
online
ils
services
ont
Mario
sorti
Party en
50
Mais
versions
pourquoi
DS.
faire ouais,
how online services affect those genres from a
Non,
mais
mais
carrément,
MOBA,
t'en bats les
MOBAs
couilles.
non,
to
mais
mobile games.
Tu vas en faire quoi de ta Pro là?
Les gars,
I think
ils
mobile
ont
games,
sorti, ils ont
are
sorti
relatively new to console and PC
combien de
developers.
3DS?
Starting to figure this out now.
Et elle
But in the world,
continuait
for
de se vendre.
example,
Combien de DS? La DS, la
MMORPGs,
Nintendo DS, on fait la
the
DS.
genre
Une
has
DS
existed
Lite,
since
la
the days
DS
of
Lite,
MUDs,
la DS
Ah ouais,
la
tu vois, Switch
XL.
Pro,
mobile games,
c'est
a lot of
un
mobile games,
fake.
especially free-to-play games, had to have these services baked in from the
Mais
beginning
largement.
in order to run a free-to-play
Oui,
game, or else
mais
it's simply
donc
not
je
going
vous
to
dis,
Surtout
make
qu'ils
money
venaient de
enough
sortir la
to
Lite.
survive
Ils
as a
venaient
game
de sortir
studio.
même
la
si
Lite.
je vous le dis, je me souviens, il était même à Tokyo, je sais pas trop quoi, en train de se balader en tenant son téléphone. Et et le mec il disait, je vous dis, ça arrive bientôt, ça arrive bientôt. Puis au final, bah, on est en mars, on est en avril, bientôt 2020, et il a annoncé ça en 2018. Donc non, il y en a pas. Il y en aura une, mais pas maintenant. Dans ce cas, c'est facile,
Yes, I
hein.
want to know your opinion on how different
Mais moi,
genres
je
of
dis,
il a
on
games
raison,
n'aura
use
pas du
online
tout.
service differently, and it definitely
T'as
seems
raison,
like
on
more
n'aura
and
pas.
more game genres are starting to pick up
T'as
even
raison, Tawan,
role-playing
il
games,
a,
which
il a
we
raison.
were used to just you
Il a
release
raison,
the
c'est une
game
fake news.
and then that's
Et
it, you get
parce que
nothing
dans ce cas,
else.
c'est
How has it
facile, hein.
evolved?
Ouais.
Yeah,
Bah,
I
avec
think it's
Xbox
interesting
Live Actual,
because
on a
when you're
déjà
streaming and
on a
when
déjà
you're
la
locking
série
your server
chez nous,
costs
on
for
l'a.
running live services, every minute
C'est
of
facile à dire,
engagement
hein.
is a minute of cost. So if you have a fixed price once and no other way to monetize players, eventually
Qu'est-ce
if
que
they
j'aurais
love your
bien
game
être
enough
avec
for years and
ami
years,
avec
you're probably losing money, right?
avec le petit filou.
You have to think of like the true service
Ah, il est
versus the
déjà à
cost of
série
running a
X.
service.
Ah ouais, c'est
Charging
clair.
customers
C'est là,
fairly. I think you know, you look at some of the
Le mec qui
genres
te
that
dit, je vais
have
dans
come
le salon et
through
tout,
sort of social and
vas-y,
mobile,
fais
they've been really
profiter.
light in terms of
Alors,
like
milieu de confinement, vas-y,
the
envoie, moi
production
je te
value,
le
and
dis,
that's
je
been
te dis
getting
pas
better.
non.
And I think
Et là,
again,
ce
like,
soir,
I think the
Microsoft,
latent
il dit,
demand
vu
over
qu'il y a le
time for
confinement, on
figuring out
sort
how
la
to adapt certain
Xbox
genres to be
dès
effective
demain.
service-based games
Il
and
pourrait pas.
effectively run on
Bah,
different
t'es fou, il
platforms.
pourrait
Gratuit
pas.
pour tous.
You know, look at
Non,
Déjà
par
que les
contre,
gens ils sont
vous
malades pour
savez,
acheter du
non,
papier cul,
non,
les gens.
Pokemon
non,
Pour acheter du papier cul pour avoir
eh,
des soldes, mon gars,
vous
c'est
savez,
même pas la
là,
peine,
when you
quoi.
were able to, there was this like groundswell of
vous
people
savez
running
là où
around
il
finding
pourrait être
Pokemon,
intelligent,
which kind
c'est
of
de
right now
dire
given COVID, everyone like the
Xbox
bizarre
Live
opposite
gratuit
world of
pour
that.
tous.
But I think, yeah,
Oui, il pourrait
there's a
faire une
potential
avance, ouais.
for
Ou même
these
Game
Pendant-
genres
Pass,
to all be
Game Pass
adapted. We all
gratuit
will.
Ouais.
pendant un
I think,
mois.
Pendant le
tu vois.
confinement,
game developers are
Tu vois.
sharp.
pendant le
Ouais,
confinement,
ouais,
They're
ouais.
passionate.
comme l'ont fait
Comme
Canal.
Canal,
They will
comme
figure out
Canal.
how to best
Voilà.
adapt these genres
D'ailleurs,
for
vous
online
avez
play. And I
vu,
think if you look at the
comment il
ones that
s'appelle,
haven't really been
TF1,
adopted
ils
yet,
ont pété un
some of them
câble.
have actual physical limitations. Like an RTS,
Oui, je viens de
playing
voir
that on a
leur
digital screen
article.
versus a
Ils
giant
demandent de
Ouais,
high-res
ils
monitor
ont-
gives you a distinct advantage,
Ouais,
right?
ils ont
On the
pété un
highest
câble
monitor.
parce
So I
que
think certain
Canal, c'est une
genres,
chaîne
the ones that are turn-based,
payante
designers
et
also have
cryptée.
to
Bah
think
non, bah
about
ils ont le
like
droit de l'offrir.
snack-sized gameplay. Like even if I can bring the couch to you with streaming,
Ils ont le
on
droit
your
de
Bien sûr
phone,
qu'ils ont le droit
I
de
may
faire
not
parce
have a
que
gap
quoi,
of
à des
time long
moments
enough to
sur
experience
SFR
that. And I
et
think
tout,
there's
t'as
going
des
to be a
journées
lag
où
when
des
AAA
semaines
doesn't
où
oui.
ils doivent
realize,
faire
hey,
des
they're
Non,
playing this in
moi,
different
moi je
places.
trouve que
They need a way to engage with a meaningful
ouais.
amount of
Ah
Moi
bon,
je trouve
progress,
que moi je
a
trouve
good
que
feeling about the game, or
moi je trouve
positive
que le
interaction
geste
that's short
le
enough that they
geste
can
il est
fill those
louable. Bah
pockets of
après
time
on
that
sait
people
très
are
bien
right now
hein,
using
qu'il
for
fuit le
things
canal
like
c'est pour
Words with Friends, where you
en
take a quick
espérant
turn
qu'il y en
and
ait
go,
quelques-uns
right?
qui s'abonnent
Maybe that's an
derrière.
extreme example, but
Mais
still, it needs to be like a 5-minute
Non mais
experience
c'est
that
les
you can
seuls qui
have.
le font.
You can't only
Netflix
have
ils
Voilà.
l'ont pas
on your
fait.
couch, even if I can bring it to you.
Netflix
Disney
ils le
Plus
font
ils
pas.
n'ont pas dit
Jesse, I
voilà
kind
on
of
va
C'est
want to
américain,
follow
c'est
up a little
pas
bit on
français.
that. Something that you mentioned, Pokemon Go, which was quite
Ouais, voilà.
revolutionary. My mother, who's
Ils le
never
font
played
peut-être aux
Pokemon
États-Unis.
or
Même,
seen
t'as
Pokemon at all,
entendu qu'en
was
Amérique,
playing
oui,
Pokemon Go.
oui,
Non,
So
mais
what
c'est
kind
mondial.
of
ils ont dit qu'ils allaient
revolutions
mettre
are
le
we seeing in
25,
gaming right now,
ou je sais
similar
pas
to
quoi
that
là, ils allaient
online
mettre la Reine
services
des
has
Neiges du
brought threat
Qu'est-ce qu'on
to
s'en bat
not
les
just the
couilles,
gaming
franchement.
community, but to the world
Qu'est-ce
as a
qu'on s'en
whole.
bat les couilles.
Well, I think
Ils
that
allaient
that's one
offrir, ils
example.
allaient
I
mettre
think,
plutôt la Reine des Neiges
you know, another
sur
one
le
of the things that
stream de
James talked
Disney+,
about earlier, which
en
hasn't
Amérique.
really happened yet, but I expect to happen.
En France, ils peuvent pas.
You know, you're seeing
En France, ils
like
peuvent
massive
pas parce
worlds that you're able to
qu'ils
fill up
ont
easier,
la loi
right?
du 36
When you
mois
think
avant la
about
sortie.
streaming as
Je sais
well,
pas
the
quoi,
ability
là.
to just jump
Vous
in
avez
without
vu,
download,
vous avez vu
that'll
The
lead to like
Mandalorian?
ad units and things like
L'épisode
that as well
1,
that are new and
il
novel.
passe sur C8
I think,
Ouais, sur C8, ouais.
being able to
Ouais,
provide, sure.
The Mandalorian.
I would say take Roblox, for example. Roblox
On va dire,
and actually
on va,
even Minecraft
on va
are
dire la
really
série
fascinating in that these are
exclusive
games that
Disney+,
are themselves creative tools. And
voilà,
you see
bah ça passe
user-generated
sur
content
C8.
instead of
Ça
player-generated
passe sur C8.
content is
Les
becoming
épisodes ils durent
more
pas
and more
longtemps, ils durent
important
25
in
minutes.
these games as communities. And it used to be only mod makers were in
Ouais,
there making
mais
content,
non,
and
mais
it
je veux
was
dire,
an
j'arrive pas à
active part of
comprendre,
the
tu
game,
vois.
but it was still a small
Le
minority
but,
of the
c'est qu'on
players
s'abonne à
who
Disney+,
were
pour des
also
trucs comme
creators.
ça. Toi, c'est
And
comme,
in the case of
il
Roblox,
y a
it's got
Narcos,
millions,
il y a
literally millions of
C'est
Narcos,
comme
people
il y
Obi-Wan
a
et tout ça.
created
Elite,
by,
tu vois,
Obi-Wan
in
et
many
ça, ça
cases,
va être exclu.
6 to 12
Ouais,
year
mais
old
parce
kids.
qu'il est
And so I
exclu,
think that notion of
il est
game player
il est
as
exclu,
also
il est
creator
Obi-Wan,
exclu,
c'est annulé.
is a neat shift, and you're starting to see
Oui, pour
more
l'instant.
roles
Ouais, là, il y a plein de
of
films qui
Pour
sont
l'instant,
annulés.
tout est
De toute façon,
annulé.
ils ont
Ça
tout
va
arrêté.
durer.
services
Non,
that
non,
give you as a
non.
player
Non,
more
non, 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 elle
opportunity.
a
You're no
annulé
longer
avant
just
le
having to play.
coronavirus.
You can
Elle a
play,
annulé
you
fin
can
d'année
stream,
dernière,
you can
la
create,
nana de chez
you can
Disney.
consume, you can
Elle a
buy,
annulé.
Ah ouais?
you can, you know,
Ouais, elle a
chat.
annulé, elle a
There's a
dit
bunch
pour
of
l'instant
more
ce n'est pas
ways to
d'actualité.
engage.
Nanana.
Oh,
I
speaking
think
of
I have a
Non,
slightly
ils préfèrent nous
different
faire
view
des
on
reines,
that, which
des
is I agree with
Mulan,
everything James said, but I would
ils vont
also
pas tarder à
say
nous refaire
people talk about
Blanche-Neige et les
UGC.
7 nains, La Belle et le
I think the most
Clochard.
ubiquitous
Non,
form
c'est
of
déjà fait
UGC
ça.
Et
is
au
actually
fait,
just
Ils vont
You,
multiplayer.
faire leur
The
dessin
fact that you
animé
show up to play against somebody, you're
en
providing
live
UGC.
t'avais
action.
If you weren't there,
l'application
you need a
Disney
bot
Plus
for
sur
it,
Xbox, mais
right?
moi je l'ai
So
pas.
it's the
Comment
most
tu l'as eu?
natural way to do
Ouais, moi
UGC
je l'ai
because
eu.
all you have to do to provide your
mettant ma console
content is
en
just be a
américain.
player. And so I think multiplayer is like the most base level
Voilà.
of
Ah ouais?
UGC
Ah
in
d'accord.
some sense if
Mais,
you think of it that
mais
way.
par contre, pour que ça fonctionne, il faut que tu
We have a
sois,
question
il faut que
from
tu utilises
Mixer
un VPN,
again.
sinon ça fonctionne
Do
pas.
we need such a powerful console in
D'accord.
cloud
Ouais, non,
gaming
mais
and
non, mais
streaming
j'attendrai
is the
25,
future?
c'est pas grave, mais.
From
Ouais,
Magic
pour
Mark
maintenant,
Non,
c'est
non,
pas
Obi-Wan
possible.
elle est bien confirmée la série, hein.
do we
Avec
need such a
Ivan
powerful
McGregor.
console
Elle est
if
bien
cloud gaming
confirmée.
and
C'est
streaming
parce
is the
qu'elle est en
future? Oh, okay.
attente.
So they're asking,
Non, non, mais
why
Si,
are
si,
we
c'est
seeing
marqué
bigger
sur
and better
le site
consoles if it
Disney+.
seems like we're moving towards streaming services?
Si, si,
I
c'est
think
sûr.
it's an and. I think, you know,
C'est parce que j'avais vu, je l'avais vu
you always
dans
have to
Mandalorian.
pay for the
Écoute,
console somewhere. And so, if you choose to buy
ouais,
the
mais c'est parce
console and
qu'elle
pay
a
for it
annoncé,
Non, ça date du mois de février.
la
25
directrice
février
Disney.
2020.
of your
Ah,
you know,
elle est revenue alors dessus.
enjoyment of that platform.
Bon,
But in the case
il
of,
parle
if you
beaucoup
don't want to
aussi
buy the
là,
console
pour
upfront, or if you want to have it on your devices like mobile phones,
savoir si leur console elle va sortir cette année ou l'année prochaine. Il faut chier.
and now you're basically paying effectively by the hour. Now there may be subscription services, there may be hourly fees, but ultimately it's now changing that into from a one-time payment into an ongoing, stream
Ouais,
of
voilà,
fees.
non, mais après,
And
voilà,
I
ils
think that's
sortent
fine.
toujours ça.
Chooses
Donc,
sort of how
Canal+,
you want
c'est
to
gratuit pour
access
tous
it.
et toutes,
Because
uniquement
what
sur les
what
box
streaming will do
et
is it will open up the
l'application
world of gaming to a much
MyCanal.
broader audience.
Ceux qui
And so
sont
the hardcore
abonnés
gamers will still be
à
buying
Canal,
consoles, and we're gonna
ceux
have
qui
the
sont
best,
déjà abonnés à
fastest,
Canal,
most
juste
awesome
Canal, ils
consoles
ont
for
tout,
people
ils
who
ont
want to have those
SCS,
experiences.
Ciné+,
But we now have this
ils ont le
opportunity to
bouquet
provide
total.
that same experience
Si
to
t'es
people
déjà
who may
abonné
not want to make that front
à Canal+.
and
Après,
there,
ceux
I
qui ont
think we're
tout,
going to
bah, ils ont
ultimately
rien, en
grow
fait.
the world of gaming, and that's great for all of us.
Et eux, ils ont le droit de
Christina, do you
payer.
agree?
Yeah, I agree with what James is saying. I don't think it's necessarily an either-or situation
Ils ont
where
pas
you
pris
have to
expert.
have
en fait,
a
il
console
parle
up
depuis tout à
front
l'heure.
or you do game streaming.
Je sais
I
pas ce
think
qu'ils
it's
disent.
they provide different platforms, different
Ouais.
types of gaming experience. And for some
Bah,
gamers, they'll
ils
want
arrêtent pas de
both.
faire des pubs
Some
là-dessus.
gamers,
Rejoignez
one will work
Microsoft
better than
Team,
the other.
rejoignez la
And I think it's
team.
about
Ils arrêtent
providing
pas.
the
Christiana
accessibility
Parker.
and the options to the player. It's empowering the player to play however they want to play and access the content however they want
Ah,
to.
Romain est en train de la
Something
rechercher
that
sur Twitter.
Christina said there that maybe players will want one or the other.
Ouais.
Which players are going to focus on streaming services compared to game
Il est au
consoles?
taquet.
I think it really depends on a couple of things. Number one, super
Bon,
high-speed
logiquement, ça
internet
commence dans
isn't
15 minutes.
ubiquitous. It's becoming more widespread and prolific, but streaming services still rely on a certain amount of bandwidth to deliver the gaming experience to the end device. Also, for people on the move, people traveling, people who prefer that mobile platform but would maybe like a richer experience, stream services are great
ça
for
va
them.
vite.
I also think we're going to see a move
Bah
to a
ouais.
world where it's very much an and. When you
C'est
think
ça,
about a
moi, nous aussi,
console,
nous aussi.
the console
Ah,
comes with an expected
ça va
price
bien.
point and a certain
Ouais, il
size
va battre
of
beaucoup.
format you want it to be able to connect to your television.
Il manque une brique
There's
pour
only so
son
much
mur.
hardware
Ouais, bah
we
ouais.
can fit in there. There's
Bah
only
après, tu
so
sais, moi
much
j'ai envie
that
de
can be
bouffer des
built in
Kit
at a
Kat,
price
alors
point and a size that makes
peut-être que je me
sense
prendrai
in
une
the home
PS5.
scenario. When you think about something like a cloud where the resources are by the second or by the minute, the amount of compute power that you can bring to video gaming
il parle tellement les
experiences to
gars
do things like
que
cloud rendering
j'ai plus
where
de batterie dans mon
your
téléphone.
gameplay and maybe
Quand tu regardes
procedurally
ton
generated
téléphone.
scenery are rendering in real time on the cloud and being delivered to your console.
Bah, en
Your
fait, moi
console
je
is
regarde
focusing on audio, gameplay, effects,
pour
particles.
voir la vraie
You're
vidéo, je regarde
basically
sur la
able to
télé,
bring as many
je regarde
consoles
sur
as you
sur
want
YouTube
to
et
the
Xbox One
fore to
Actu
deliver the
et
gaming
pour
experience that
parler
you
au chat,
envision.
je regarde
And
sur
this
mon
is just
téléphone
the
pour
question that
avoir
I
une
just
vue
asked,
sur
but we have
le
another
chat.
question from Discord. If game streaming services are the next big thing, which it definitely seems to be going in that direction, what about people that don't have access to the internet? Jesse?
Attends.
Well, if you don't have access to the internet, you can't really stream games, but you also can't play any multiplayer games. So you're not, I mean, whether you're streaming it or playing it locally, you're not playing Fortnite if you're not on the internet, right? I mean, you just can't play with other people. So I think, like, you know, the penetration of stream games has to match somewhat the map of
Non, c'est prévu.
the connectivity that'll support it, right? I think think over time, though, you have 5G coming. There's costs with that. People on Wi-Fi will get it for whatever the base cost is. I think the internet is spreading rapidly. There's lots of people on the internet, and I think it's just a matter of time. But yeah, some people, if you don't have internet, I think you're just out of luck.
I want to shift our discussion a little bit, and Christina, I want to ask you this first. Tell us a little bit about the trends that we're seeing with game development and the use of online services.
Well, I think the trends for game development, it's it's kind of on that iteration that In Exile was speaking about, and testing your
Ah là
services
là,
sooner
si tu
and getting
stream,
feedback from players
si
sooner
tu stream
and
Resident, c'est vers
incorporating
quelle
that
heure?
into
21h30,
the
non?
game development process. You know, it's no
Ouais,
longer
faut que je
that
le
box
prenne, mais là,
product
tu vois, comme
mentality
ma
or
console est
games
là.
as a
Attends, je vais essayer de le
product where
regarder un
you
peu.
put it out and you're done.
Ah bah ouais.
It's starting much sooner in development process, testing your services, getting out to players, getting iteration, and
On a
incorporating
perdu
that
Romain,
into
à
the
mon
whole
avis, il est
process to
parti
get
chercher, il est
towards
parti voir
games as a
l'Instagram de la
community.
nana.
James Trott, have you seen any other trends?
What I start to see with developers now is kind of a new way of approaching development, whether
Ou
that's
du
streaming or whether it's with the cloud. They're starting to think about how to pull all of these things into their games, and they start
Les
to
gens,
think
ils font
about,
partie de la team,
especially
ça,
as you think about
Microsoft
streaming,
Teams.
you start to think about how that
De ceux
runtime
qui font
moves
la console
around.
et tout,
What runs
de
where?
Seattle.
Does it run on your device? Does it run in the cloud?
Ouais, voilà.
We also
Il
see
parle
people
des...
thinking
Et en fait, ils font des
about a
conférences
new
comme
kind
ça,
of
vu qu'ils
procedural
sont soumis
content,
également
where the cloud is
au...
constantly
Ils sont
running
soumis également au
simulations and
confinement aux
updating
États-Unis.
content without developer interaction. We worked
Donc du
on
coup,
a
ils ont fait
project
venir un
with
minimum de
Microsoft
personnes.
Technologies last year for an MMO-like
Ouais, en fait, ils sont en
system
train de préparer les
for bosses
PowerPoint,
that learn player
Jackie,
behaviors in raid encounters.
pour montrer
So
ce que
as
la
raids go on
PS5
and
a dans le
people
ventre
find
et pour
dominant
montrer ce que la
strategies,
Series X
the bosses adapt in
a
near
dans le
real
ventre.
time, detect the strategies players are implementing, and now the challenge for developers is becoming how to tone back that machine learning and simulation given the amount of compute in the cloud, so that the NPCs and monsters aren't perfect, because with enough training and enough compute, they will beat the player every time. You kind of have to dial that back. And we're seeing a lot of interesting things happen with genetic algorithms where the content evolves based on a few base principles into something new that the developer may never have envisioned, and that brings another set of challenges for them to solve.
That's incredible. James, I want to ask you a little bit of a different question.
Ouais,
We
pour
were asking
Resident.
the trends that we're seeing from game developers. What are the trends that we're seeing now from players? Has that changed at all in the last 5 years?
Yeah, I think
Il y a
players
Vito
are
qui
frankly
n'a pas
expecting more now.
partagé le live.
Players, I think, used to be okay with the idea that, hey, I'm going to go and buy this game and I'm going to play it, enjoy it, and basically consume the director's
Et par
vision.
contre, on va
And
manger
maybe
à
they
quelle
didn't
heure?
like the ending of the
Moi, je laisse
line
tourner
and
le
grant the
stream,
ending,
puis
but
voilà.
they didn't really have a lot of power of development. Now, with these games that are being continually updated, players have a much louder voice. I like to
Parce que
think
si on doit
players,
streamer ce
sitting
soir,
at the
et...
design
parce que là,
table
mine de rien, ça
alongside the
fait,
designers, they're no longer sort of
ça
across
fait
the
2 heures
table.
qu'on est là.
And so with that power, also comes responsibility, and game developers have to figure out how to listen
Et
to
on va dire que
players
je suis pas dans
and
mon
incorporate
canapé, là,
feedback and
vu que
adapt
j'ai pris la
games for
console de
what's
mon
working
fils.
without necessarily completely pandering and losing their artistic vision. And so there's definitely a mix there. One of the game studios that we work with is called Berry Games. They have a very simple
Et vous
game
verrez
called
bientôt,
Idle
on
Miner
fera des
Tycoon,
conférences comme ça avec
which
Microsoft.
is one of the Idle Clipper games. They released the initial game version in, I think, 6 weeks of development, and then they proceeded to have an update every week, or even in some cases twice a week. And they just updated and iterated over time, and they grew that game to
Ah ouais, ce
quite
serait
a level
fort.
of success.
Et Jackie, il a raison, expert.
You
Il
really
y a
can
Jackie qui
release
dit,
now a much simpler
imagine,
experience and sort of see what's working
imagine
with
que la
players
série
and
S
adapt and
elle
iterate
fasse 10
around that
teraflops.
and build your way to success.
Merci
that way.
Damien. Que la série S fasse 10 teraflops comme la PS5 et puis que la série X fasse 12 teraflops, Sony il l'aurait mauvaise.
Should a developer
Bah, ils l'ont déjà
update their
mauvaise.
game? Is
Le
there
conf de
really a
Metz,
rule
la
of
merde
thumb
qu'ils
with
ont
that,
fait.
James G?
Ouais.
No, there's no rule of thumb. It's going to depend entirely
Putain,
on,
comment il
on
avait l'air
from
coincé
their
du derche, le
appetite,
gars chez Sony.
the genre they're
développe
in,
les consoles chez
the
Sony.
nature of their players.
Ouais, c'est lui qui a...
I think the mindset,
Ouais,
the
bah
culture
oui, bah
shift,
c'est
though,
lui
is
qui a fait
every game developer
la
is going through
PS4.
this culture shift of I am now and is always updating, always ongoing experience, and just getting to that mindset shift takes, we've seen as
En
anywhere
tout cas,
from
Microsoft,
2 to
ils ont
6
un
years
gros avantage.
for traditional developers who are used to doing it more
C'est
the
que
waterfall model.
à la tête
But that's
de la
okay.
branche
And as we
gaming,
get there,
c'est un joueur.
and the whole industry becomes more fluid, we start to see new experiences
Phil
emerging.
Spencer, c'est un joueur.
Jesse, I want to know your opinion on that because I
Phil
feel like you
Spencer, c'est un
got
joueur.
one.
Yeah.
Le
I think
gars
the
qui a
answer to that
présenté la
question is,
PS5, les
faster
stats
than your
de la
competitors.
PS5, c'était un
To put it
gros
simply, because
coincé,
if you have a
c'était
game
juste
in the
un
same genre as your
technicien, quoi, le gars.
competitors and you're updating weekly and they're updating daily, the learning cycle that they're having is 7x yours with the player base.
Voilà, le mec
You
qui
will die.
propose une architecture, c'est tout.
Like, that's basically it, like, at the end of the day. So I think, and if you look at what's happened with
Ça y est?
performance marketing,
j'ai
players
tout
that
foutu le produit
game
dans
companies
le
that
nez.
have actually high
Mais,
LTVs
ah bah,
and can tolerate
bon,
a
alors
timeline
après
where
avoir
they
dit
can
qu'il
invest
voulait
cash,
faire
like
des
a
choses
working
un peu
capital
bizarres avec
cycle,
une fille du stream,
longer than you. They can just blot out the sun basically to put it in
maintenant,
300
le
search
voilà
terms into a buying ads and you can't breathe. So I think like operational agility is really critical for operating these games. And if you can find something The best insights are ones that are not widely known. Like you find something that's counterintuitive about the audience, and you can like use that to grow the audience because you can buy for a period of time, but eventually people will figure it out because they'll deconstruct your game catch up. And so it's a constant battle. It's actually really difficult and brutal. I think anyone that's worked for mobile native for long enough has experienced this. This is coming to console and PC, in my opinion.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Ils bossaient quoi ou quoi vous avez... J'ai pas trop suivi moi s'ils avaient fait des...
On l'a pas relancé.
Ah ouais,
Bon, on a essayé de rejouer l'autre jour, il était toujours aussi bugué.
Ouais, la phase de Terminator là.
Ouais.
Il y avait
On
Terminator.
l'a fait Terminator, hein. On a fait la première phase.
Après t'as lâché le... C'est pareil quand on avait fait les trucs avec... C'est avec eux qu'on avait fait
avec Terminator.
Le Canadien, tu te rappelles? Non, pas Terminator, qu'on avait fait le...
Terminator?
C'était quoi les...
Terminator?
Yeah, and to put a finer point on what James was just saying, I think for companies that have a lot of money and large war chest, they can afford to spend $1 and say, hey, in 12 months, if we get the $1 back, great. A small company may say, oh, we're living paycheck to paycheck, we can only afford to keep that money tied up in the market for 30 days. And so ultimately, the other company can bid higher than you. And that's actually problematic, right? With performance marketing. It creates an additional challenge that hadn't been present before this.
Normalement, ça doit se télécharger. Regarde un peu sur ta console si ça se télécharge.
And make your game more organic growth. The word of mouth is taking over and encouraging your game to spread. So you're not relying on
pour l'instant, ils sont en train de...
Attends, je vais regarder direct en live. Attends, bah je vais regarder en live.
C'est chiant leur truc là. En tout cas, mon gars, le nouveau format de l'accueil de la Xbox, je trouve super bien.
Le nouveau
I think it can be
nouvel
very
accueil.
important. I mean, it's the top of the funnel. It's a lot of where acquisition for your user base comes from. Unless you have that virality K factor and you're getting the organic growth.
Ah oui, bah nous ça fait
People hear about your game
3-4 mois
mainly
qu'on
through
l'a celui-là
ads, mainly
donc.
through marketing, and then it's all about getting people into the top of the funnel.
Non, mais
And
moi,
then once they're in the game, having that really compelling game loop that retains them and keeps them in there. So without that top acquisition, you might have difficulty bringing
C'est
people
vu que
through
je
the
vous
game.
avais pas reparlé depuis, mais c'est vrai que c'est quand même beaucoup plus pratique comparé à
I
avant.
think one of the things that developers need to think about in this online services and kind of iterative world, as you said, is to think about it more like an evolution. Jesse kind of hit the nail on the head with that kind of more frequent than your competitors. But the important thing to remember is that your players are coming to enjoy and immerse themselves in the experiences that you're creating. And taking an evolutionary view to how your game evolves over time, where you're taking data in from platforms like maybe Azure Analytics, PlayFab, where you're getting that real-time view into your player behavior, into how your game is performing, into changes you might want to make, and then taking things like Azure DevOps, our app services to do blue deployment, which is this idea of
Attends, regarde un petit peu. T'es sur le live là? Regarde un petit peu ce que je vais te montrer là. Regarde bien. Je viens de recevoir un petit code bien sympa là. Alors attends, hop, on va essayer par nouveauté. Putain, je trouve pas. Alors attends, hop. Ah, ça c'est pas encore actualisé. Ah, le live il commence dans 3 minutes. Le live il commence dans 3 minutes. Ah, attends, je sais dans quoi je vais le trouver. Ah, regarde, tu le vois sur le live, tout en bas. Regarde le petit code que je viens de recevoir. Là, tout en bas, ce que tu vois sur le live.
And it just realizes itself
Attends, faut que je le mette le live.
What James G was talking about earlier with world as a service is going to make this even more prolific, where the world is able to change and evolve because that's being streamed directly into those games, those gamer experiences.
Ouais, allez, je te laisse.
Oh, please.
Oh, I was going to say, community is actually really important here too. Supercell, someone called
ouais,
out doing a great job with online services. I think they also do a great job
Ah
communicating with their
vois un
audience
peu.
and giving them a heads up as to what's coming. And I think when games don't do that, you see things like Marvel Contests or Champions where like audiences can revolt. And that's something you didn't see before online services as well. So communicating with the community
Avec tout le monde
from
qui a
the
la
developer
maison et
actually
tout,
really
laisse tomber,
important to
déjà
make people feel like they know what's
tout ça,
coming.
ils foutaient la fibre optique, mais avec l'histoire du corona, bah, ils ont arrêté les travaux. Donc on a encore moins de connexion qu'avant, c'est une cata, je te jure c'est une cata.
That's a good question. I think communication, no,
Ouais,
because it
Resident
doesn't
Evil,
really
1%
impact the
déjà.
gameplay, and people
Toi,
can
t'as
choose
vraiment
to
du cul
use it or not. But
arrivé.
you can update too quickly. I've seen people get overwhelmed with
On va aller
content.
vite.
Bah,
I
la
think this
fibre et
happened
tout,
to
bah, la
William
fibre, je l'avais
Farmville.
déjà.
De quoi
You
Et
know,
toi,
if
tu
people
t'en as
feel like they
combien
can't keep up and they're overwhelmed,
Je sais pas comment je stream
they
sur
can drop off the
YouTube et
game. So I think you
Facebook
have
et
to
tout
find
ça,
that right
plus tout le monde
balance.
est là,
And even you may have
je
different segments
dois
within your game
DL
that are
à
hungrier for more
300
content,
mégas
some that may
seconde.
feel overwhelmed.
Salut
So I
Arnaud.
think it's being able to update it enough that you're actually learning as fast as you can,
300,
faster
je veux
than
dire.
your competitors,
N'hésitez
and
pas à vous abonner à la
delighting
page
your
des
audience in all the segments that you
GXP.
have uniquely, which can be a challenge if they're all
Les
in one
mecs
shared
font
game.
beaucoup de compètes de voitures,
personalization.
Forza, tout ça.
So I was going to say personalization
Pour
is
des
a theme that we're going to see
championnats.
more and more of. It's one of those online services is your ability to
Bon,
target
sinon,
different experiences.
sinon ça commence
Trois
quand
minutes.
alors
Players
C'était
just
écrit
come
dans 3
for the first
minutes.
time,
2 minutes
you do
maintenant.
not want to overwhelm them with the same experience that you may be, offering a level 80 player who's
On va
been
faire
there
un
for 2
compte à
years.
rebours.
And so you have to be able to adopt your curves and
Et ce
have
soir,
different game
donc,
experiences for
premier
different types
aperçu
of
sur
players. We're
Resident
going to have a
Evil
game that's going to have a long time
3.
life. When a game has been around for 3 years, 4 years, you simply can't expect a new player to have the same experience by any
Ah bah
stretch.
voilà.
Merci
pour elle.
I have a differing opinion about the communication. I actually believe you can't communicate too often with your players. Depending upon how often you're communicating, you could be diminishing the message that you're sending through and diluting that. So you want to make sure that your players are reading your messages. And sometimes if you get too frequent, they can get burnt out on your messages. So you have to be really careful. And I think that comes into what James was saying of personalization. So the more you learn about your players, the more that can come into your communication as well. And you can give them targeted information that's important to them. So they know that when you're communicating with them, that it's something that they should read and that they'll care about.
Ah.
Jesse, I want to shift
On lui
topic a
transmettra.
little bit as a platform and also as a service provider. What has Microsoft been doing to make game-specific
Et tu crois que c'est
services
quoi?
better for
C'est
game
un
development?
pilou
Well, I think for starters,
Dommage.
it's really listening to
Mais pas
developers.
gentil.
trying
Tiens,
to
regarde,
figure out
Resident Evil
what
a déjà
their,
17% la démo, je viens de la mettre.
external partners.
Ouais.
Trying to actually
Ouais,
make it
moi je
simple,
pense que le seul
trying to
major
really,
qui ira, ça sera
Ouais,
Major
c'est
Laser.
clair.
make
Non,
it simple to
logiquement, il
see
devrait y
what we
avoir.
want, and either we have it for you, or we have an
Il
answer
serait
for
déjà
you
là.
with a
Major
partner if we
Nelson, il
don't,
serait déjà là, je pense.
in our stack. And I think just trying to be
Ouais, il a
clear.
tendance à être là, ouais, c'est vrai. Avec
Yeah,
les-
I
Eh,
don't
par
know,
contre,
maybe James
par
has
contre, moi j'ai
a
la,
better
par contre,
answer
moi j'ai
with
la mise à
PlayFab.
jour de la, j'ai la nouvelle mise à jour de la Xbox.
No, I think
Ils ont
you
changé
nailed it. I
plein de
think,
trucs encore.
as a platform provider, we're just continually listening
Ah,
to our
montré à
game
expert,
developers
ouais.
and really trying to put the developers
Ah
first
ouais, ils
and
ont
saying
changé encore.
what do our
Ah
developers
ouais,
need
ils ont
to be
tout
successful.
changé dans le menu,
mission
tu sais, quand
statement.
t'appuies. Bah, tu
PlayFab
vois le
is now
menu qui
part of
t'a
an
montré, qui te
organization
montre
here at
expert.
Microsoft
Et bah
called
c'est
the Game
pas du tout
Developer,
pareil.
Sous
Hein.
Crazy,
Game Developer
pas mal.
Experiences organization, and we have as our mission statement empowering game creators to realize their dreams. And it may sound a little bit, hokey, a little bit highfalutin, but we take it pretty seriously. We really see ourselves as helping game
C'est pas
creators
pour dire, mais
be
c'est un peu
successful.
casse-couille leur
Microsoft's
conférence là
mission
quand même.
statement
Je sais pas pourquoi ils
C'est
ont
pour les
demandé
pros, parce que c'est.
Non, mais en fait, je crois que c'est.
Normalement, c'est la Game
Ouais.
Developer
Je crois que c'est
Conference.
nous qui avons merdé.
C'est Game Developer Conference normalement, et en fait,
Ouais.
c'est comme elle a pas eu lieu, en fait, ils le font tous en vidéo comme ça.
Is because I've been a game developer for 20 years. I saw the
Voilà,
rising
comme Sony, il a
curve
fait.
of
Ouais, mais
technology
pourquoi
making
commencer à
it harder and
18h
harder
pour
for small
commencer à
J'avais dit c'était
19h30,
19h30,
on
on
va
m'a dit
dire
non.
un peu plus tard, je veux dire, pour parler.
useful but critical.
J'ai dit bon bah ok.
Eh, en fait,
It
c'est
takes a
un
lot
de-
of capital to build great
En fait,
online services at
la
scale.
Xbox,
And so,
les
I
jeux
see what
Xbox
we're
Series X ils vont
providing
être présentés
and
par
by
Andrew
harnessing the
House.
power of our cloud to help, even
C'est ça, ouais,
smallest
c'est
indie
ça.
developer studios compete effectively on a level playing field with the biggest studios.
T'imagines
It's
gros
critical to
bâtard.
S'il faut,
see,
c'est lui qui vient
innovation
chez
and great to
Microsoft.
be alive in our industry.
Ouais,
T'imagines, c'est lui
Microsoft,
qui arrive.
ouais.
James Crow, I want to ask you the same
Microsoft,
question on
hashtag
how
gros bâtard,
Microsoft
tu
is
sais.
impacting these game-specific details for game development.
I think Microsoft, and especially with
PDG,
PlayFab
voilà.
and the game developer
Et
experience
les gars,
team
Ah, mais moi,
qui
je
se
suis
barrent
really
désolé.
practicing
et les
what
gars
we
qui se
preach
barrent
and
de
a lot
chez
of what
Naughty
we're
Dog
talking
qui
about
arrivent
here.
dans le
We
studio
use every signal we can,
dans le
whether
studio
that's
Xbox, là.
sentiment, feedback, or analytics in our own services
De
to
toute
see what's
façon,
working and
Microsoft,
what's
ils
not,
vont
and
quoi
really
les faire
turn the
venir
dial on what will
largement.
work best.
Salut
for
Miss
a game
Skywalker.
developer. I think it goes a little wider
Enfin,
than
bonjour à la princesse
game-specific
Leia.
services too. A lot of the services that across our cloud offerings, across our analytics, storefronts, our live ops, just for regular software, the biggest corporations in the world use these services, and they're available in such a way that whether you're an indie developer or a AAA, we have an offering that will allow you to maximally realize your vision, and we're constantly tuning for developers of every type. Like James said, Microsoft's mission is to enable every person on the planet to do and achieve more.
Attends,
And we do that by listening broadly and actioning that as quickly as possible with our own iterative cycles, growing our services, growing our presence, listening to the features that developers need, and allowing developers to build the game they want with the tools they want on and for the platforms they want, and that's how Microsoft is approaching this all up.
We've been talking a lot about the high level, but I actually kind of want to go to the basic level of this with a lot of developers, maybe not even really knowing what PlayFab or GameStack is. How would they become a part of the Microsoft experience here with all the tools that they're using? James G.
Sure. So, go to GameStack.com. The team has built a really good website that has a lot of entry points there, saying depending on what kind of developer you are, what you're looking for, you can think of that as almost a roadmap to all the different services Microsoft has, which can be overwhelming at times. So from GameStack.com, you can go into deep diving on PlayFab. We have PlayFab.com, which is a website specifically for our online services offering. Azure, of course, has this vast set of services that you can tap into.
Ça s'installe chez moi, en
from
fait.
your raw compute and storage and networking services, all the way up to some pretty cutting-edge machine learning and AI techniques that are available off the shelf. We use Azure Cognitive Services inside of PlayFab, things like real-time language translation and real-time closed captioning.
Non, mais là, c'est en fait, il laisse
some pretty cool technologies there.
il laisse le stream.
And then, of course, you've got our various platforms. We've got PC, we've got Xbox. It's a whole bunch of different materials specifically for those platforms.
Mais moi, je dois aller manger aussi.
And who can use these platforms?
Everyone. I mean, we literally are making our services available for everyone from the smallest hobbyist or two-person indie shop all the way up to working with some of the biggest AAA studios in the world.
Well, that's awesome. How have these services come to define the development of future games? What are game developers doing differently today? And Christina, I want to talk to you on this.
Non, bah non.
Yeah, I think I touched on this earlier. I think it's about starting sooner in the development process. I mean, services have always, from at least an online game point of view, have been something that's been needed to be created to support the game. But it's bringing other services online earlier, and it's using them earlier. So, like I said, it was about iterating, about putting content out there and getting feedback and building on those services and building on the game using those services.
I mean, I'll jump in. In the early days of the online services space,
non, par contre,
you had to build those
impressionne le plus,
c'est
le nombre de personnes qui se peignent de devoir s'occuper de leur gosse.
Ah ouais, non, mais ça me fait rigoler, franchement.
Putain, mais les gens,
là,
il faut s'en occuper.
C'est dur, hein, franchement.
Which
Fais
means
pas
the
de
game
gosse,
itself is
hein.
really
Je
built around the
laisse
services from the ground
ça.
up, which is a much more cohesive and integral experience.
C'est là que tu vois que les gens ils sont dépendants de tout, tu vois. De l'école, des machins, tu vois. Puis les gens ils n'ont pas de vie avec leur gamin, en gros.
Powered by Microsoft that are going to be pretty compelling.
C'est le week-end, il
Jesse, is there anything else that you're seeing with developers that are using online services differently today than we did 10 years ago?
Tu vois, moi,
I mean, primarily it's kind of
il y a des choses qui me révoltent.
They're just getting earlier feedback from customers and more frequent feedback from
Il y a des choses qui me révoltent par rapport au Corona, c'est quand je vois des gens se balader.
You don't have to project out what content, 50 hours into the game, or they're going to need a year from now, because what's going to happen is you're going to set the system so that you can actually get that data, your feedback,
pour le laisser en sécurité. Il est asthmatique, tout ça. J'ai pas envie. Sa mère est infirmière. J'ai pas envie qu'il vienne chez moi, qu'il aille toi. J'ai pas envie. Et après, quand j'en vois qui font des lives, genre ils sont à la plage, tout ça, ça me gonfle. Parce que moi, je fais attention. Et c'est de toute façon, c'est en faisant tous et toute attention que ce putain de virus, il va partir.
James Wertzman, do you have an example of how game studios are using these services today? I know you just mentioned Bethesda, but is there any other?
La Chine, 2 mois en gros confinement. Nous sans confiner. Nous sans confiner, bah...
4-5 mois.
Bah ouais, c'est clair.
Et encore, si le machin ne peut pas d'ici là, parce que peut-être que d'ici cet été, il aura peut-être tendance à muter le bordel, hein. T'en sais rien, on sait pas.
Exactement ça.
C'est taré, franchement, on comprend rien. Le français, quand on te dit que c'est des débiles, le français, il faut...
Moi,
je pense que c'est une blague, qu'il y a, tu vois, ils disent que c'est un complot de l'État, que et tu sais, les gens, ils deviennent parano sous quoi.
Moi, je m'embrouille avec plein de gens, toi, ceux qui font... Et puis qui disent, j'ai l'autorisation, mais je vais leur faire bouffer leur autorisation.
Mais il devrait même plus en avoir d'autorisation. Pour le chien et tout, tu te démerdes. Le chien, il chie dedans. En Chine, quoi, il sortait pas le chien. Donc,
voilà. Salut les tordants. Normalement, c'est censé commencer, c'était 19h30. C'était 19h30 et c'est dans 1 minute normalement.
James Trott, I kind of want to ask you the same question, but a little bit differently. Are there any games that are using these online services that surprised you?
Parce qu'en fait, du coup, vu qu'Expert est parti, je dois m'occuper du chat Facebook et du chat
I spent a lot of time over the last year talking to
YouTube.
a lot of our ID at Xbox partners, small studios that are building independent games with Microsoft for Xbox and other platforms. And I'm always blown away by the variety and the kind of ingenious ways they find to use our services. One of the early questions that I used to get a lot was, well, okay, I get it, Microsoft has this game stack, but what does it cost?
C'est pas grave, on laissera tourner.
Across the stack, especially for the small developer or just starting out, to get those signals and start trying these things out, the answer is free.
Ah, et puis ils vont certainement parler de xCloud aussi.
Tons of free services. Azure DevOps, GitHub.
J'espère qu'ils n'en parleront pas trop parce que non. J'espère qu'il y a une application Xbox Streaming, moi je l'ai. Mais la connexion est trop faible. Si moi ça fonctionne, mais j'ai pas assez de connexion. Moi j'ai une connexion de merde.
Digital delivery of like skins, assets, cosmetics,
L'autre fois j'ai testé, je l'ai
you can
appris.
do a huge amount with very little if you're prepared to put in the
c'est
dev
bon,
time.
Expert il a installé
il a installé
Resident Evil 3. Ça vient de s'inscrire sur
These
l'écran.
services are for them too. They can get the kind of insights that Jesse's
T'as
talking
mis
about. You don't have to be a
Resident
sea
Evil
of
3
thieves to
démo prêt à
understand how your
télécharger.
players are using your game.
Ah,
And
mais
you
lui, il
can
a de la
leverage
chance,
the
hein. Putain,
cloud
ça
to
va.
actually offset a huge amount
Ah,
of
demain,
what
il y a le
used to
Morning
be
Night
the
aussi.
constant update cycle cost of
Ah,
having
ça
to
va être
ship
cool à
new
voir.
builds,
Franchement, il me
just
tarde
by
de
doing
voir.
dynamic content generation
ça va faire du bien.
and putting a lot of your
Franchement,
assets into a cloud or a
qu'est-ce que
cloud service
j'adorais
or
à
a
l'époque le
gaming-specific
Morning
service
Live.
like
Enfin,
Playbook.
je sais pas ce que les
Jesse,
autres, ce
anything
que
you
vous en
wanna
pensez
add
dans le
there?
chat, tout ça. Après, il y en a qui sont peut-être jeunes, donc ils n'ont pas connu. Mais le Morning Live, mais
You know, I think we've hit all the high points.
après,
Fantastic.
j'espère
Well, Jesse, how many of these
ils seront,
Microsoft's 15 game
ils
studios
seront
are
borderline
currently
comme
using
ils
online
l'étaient,
services?
comme ils l'étaient, parce que si c'est pour faire un
Oh
truc
gosh,
tout
I
lisse,
would imagine all of them. Although
moi ça
I don't
m'intéresse
know
même pas,
that
quoi.
I've had the chance to meet with all of them yet, but
Close,
I
it's
mean,
close to all of them. Yeah,
it's got to be all of them, right? In some
Bah
way.
allez, mais on s'en bat les couilles, arrête de parler là.
So
If they have achievements, at least they're using online services.
Yeah.
Il dit, on a
That's
parlé de
incredible.
la...
James Gortzman, yesterday, when we were talking about
On
our
a
live
parlé de
ops
PlayStation,
and how does
alors
that
Xbox,
integrate
hein.
with other online services
Non,
that
mais ça,
we're
c'est pas
talking
leur
about here,
conférence
because live
encore,
ops
hein.
and online services aren't the same thing. So how do they integrate
Ouais,
together?
mais pourquoi mettre ça? On
Yeah,
s'en bat
I
les
mean,
steaks. Qui peut... Non,
Live
mais
ops
ils
is
ont pas
actually more
compris
of
que
a
les
sort
gens,
of
tu
cultural
vois, t'es en plus
Ça,
t'es en
c'est juste-
confinement, tu crois que t'as envie de...
Ouais.
T'as pas envie de regarder ça, quoi, je veux dire.
Ça c'est juste une histoire de statistiques. Parce qu'en fait, c'est comme pour la télé, tu sais, ton émission plus elle est longue, plus tu peux dire j'ai fait tant de spectateurs. Là, s'ils font un live de 30 minutes, et bah, ils vont avoir tant de viewers, et s'ils font un truc qui dure pendant 1h30, 2 heures, et bah, ils auront beaucoup plus de viewers. Et ils pourront se vanter de dire ouais.
Ah, ça y est, tu commences à tousser, t'as le corona, ça y est.
Ouais, non, c'est parce que je commence à. J'ai soif et tout.
Christina,
Je bois
kinda
pas
same
beaucoup parce
question
qu'il y a
to you,
restriction.
between live ops and online services, clearly not.
Ouais,
Is there one
restriction.
that's more important than the other? Should
Non, il y a pas,
developers
je plaisante qu'il
be
n'y a pas de
focusing on
restriction.
both of them?
Hein?
Well, I think
Ah,
it's like
comme les
what James said. You
pancakes,
can't really
putain,
have
mais les
live
gars,
ops
il y a
without
du
live
robinet, hein.
services. So
Ouais,
you
moi
need
aussi, moi je prends
to
l'eau du
build those
robinet,
live
je m'en bats les
services
couilles.
or
Ah
get
oui.
the PlayFab to help
De toute
you
façon,
with
l'eau
those
du
live
robinet, si elle
services,
était pas bonne,
and then you'll be able to practice the culture of live ops.
Voilà.
But it's important to kind of
Voilà, on
start both at the
crèverait tous
same
les
time.
uns
You
et puis
can't
on
start your live services
C'est clair.
and then transition to a culture of live ops. Once you
Bon, de toute façon,
decide
je vais
that you're
devoir
going
aller
to make a
manger, hein,
live
parce que
game
là, ça
and use
démarre
these
pas.
live services, you have to start that
Et tu
culture
reviens
of
quand
live
alors,
ops
Romain?
then, because that's a lot of
Je sais
difficulty that
pas.
developers run into is changing
Non, bien
that
joué avec toi,
dans les
même
functionality
des
from a
prochains
fois.
box
jours.
product
Ouais,
to a
même des
live
fois,
Ah, dans
si
les
tu vois les
prochains
autres
jours,
qui
franchement,
sont.
on va plus avoir le
We
temps.
actually got a question from
Ouais,
our
si-
Discord. How do
Si
they
tu veux les
envision
gens,
game
si
studios
tu
should
veux,
evolve to best
si des
take
fois tu nous vois connectés
advantage
sur un
of
truc, moi tu me
advances
dis,
in
hein,
service
que
technology?
des fois ils jouent à Call of, on est 4 et il y a que 3
It's a
places,
culture
donc
shift.
moi ça me dérange
I mean,
pas
I'll
après
start with the
d'aller
culture,
sur un autre jeu
which
avec
is
toi.
starting to say, you know,
Y a pas de
Ouais,
problème.
we've seen this. We've seen traditional studios
t'inquiète, c'est
have
pas
this
tout
model
fait.
where it
De
starts
toute
with
façon, moi,
designers,
je
Ça
vais
fera
aller.
plaisir.
On va
design,
laisser
they
tout.
build
Ouais,
it,
bah,
they
Ouais,
ship
ouais,
it,
t'inquiète.
you
On
know,
va-
2
Ouais, bon,
years
allez, bah,
later, and then they
de toute façon,
move
moi
up the
j'y
sequel.
vais.
Right,
Bah, en tout
that's
cas, bah, là,
that's
je
Ouais,
finis
ça
le
marche.
stream si vous
and
voulez, mais
studios that are
moi,
starting to
moi, il
adopt
faut
the
que j'aille
live ops
manger. Hein,
mentality,
donc,
started with a culture
Ouais,
shift.
vas-y,
surtout
bon
We're
si,
going to be shipping new
surtout
content every
si
couple
à
weeks,
21h on
you know,
stream
and start
Resident
to
Evil,
build their
quoi.
studio around that. And we're going to be learning and engaging with our player base to do
Bon,
so.
Romain, en tout cas,
So
ça
we're
fait
going to
vraiment
start
plaisir
using
de te
analytics
retrouver.
and
Ça,
looking at player
Ouais, c'est
behavior
clair, moi aussi,
and
t'inquiète.
and
Ouais, ça
Ouais,
marche, vas-y.
mapping
n'hésite
teams
pas,
differently. So
n'hésite
you're no
pas
longer have
surtout
just
parce
your art team and your design team and your
on a
code
bien
team.
joué avec toi
Now you have a
et...
live ops team.
Ouais,
You have
voilà,
a marketing team.
Et
is
le
that's
book
what the publisher
d'experts
does,
qui
which
récupère
is
des
an integral
choses,
part of your
il t'a
studio.
manqué
And
aussi.
so how you staff and how you organize your studio
Oui, ça
itself is
marche,
changing.
t'inquiète.
Ouais, salut
I
Romain,
was gonna say
n'hésite
also
pas,
to
d'accord?
add on what
Salut.
James is saying.
Ouais, ça marche.
Salut.
The idea that the role of the PM and the designer greatly sort of change or evolve in this model because, like I
Ouais,
said,
ben
with the
voilà, bah
traditional
écoutez,
bit of cost, there's
il y a
also
du
there's
retard,
a traditional bit
il y
of
a du
cost, there's a
retard,
traditional
donc
bit of engagement. And so
tournez,
designing your game to be either
on laisse
service-based, where you
tourner
need to have a revenue
et
stream that
n'hésitez pas à
matches
vous
the
abonner, à
ongoing cost of
partager,
operating it,
parce que
needs to
là
be
il
designed in from the
faut, on
beginning.
a besoin de manger parce qu'on
It's not just
on
like
va vous
designing a box
proposer
retail game that you get
on va vous
60 bucks for
proposer
and
le
that's it.
stream de Resident Evil 3 ce
You have to be
soir,
very
donc
careful about your economy. I
voilà.
think the other thing
Ben
to
en tout
consider
cas
is if
merci
there's
à vous, merci
player-to-player
d'être
value
présent,
exchange in your game,
merci à ceux qui
you have a
arriveront
whole
et
set of other
n'hésitez
concerns to think
pas à
about.
vous abonner à la page.
Things like money laundering, right? There's a whole series of things that can now happen with an online game that just weren't concerns when you were just playing it by yourself on a console.
No, I remember the launch of Diablo 3, the auction house there created quite a stir with people essentially doing what you're saying there.
Yeah.
James Trott, have we seen anything else like that in the evolution of online services?
I mean, we've seen a lot of interesting kind of abuses and kind of interesting workarounds. As we move to streamed content, one of the things that it actually becomes really hard to do is influence the system, cheat, exploit bugs, because everything is happening on the server side. There's been this rule in services development for games for a long time: don't trust the client. We never trust what is happening on the end device. Well, in the streamed gaming world, the only thing coming from the device is the input, and everything else is coming from an online service down to it. So there are significant advantages. With live ops, you're actually able to watch a huge amount of data flow past. And so when it comes to something like an economy, an auction house, or where money laundering or other illicit activity might be going on, you're going to see certain behaviors, and you can instrument and detect that with a very low barrier to entry. People kind of get into this mindset of, oh, that must be very difficult to do. And services like PlayFab have taken a lot of the hard work out to the point that this is a very kind of point and click, easy to adopt notion to protect yourself. There's no need to be intimidated by any of these things.
James Gwertzman, James Trott, Jesse, Christina, thank you guys so much for joining me here. This was a great conversation. And if you guys are just joining us right now, do not worry. You're going to be able to catch the VOD of this on our YouTube channel later on. I do want to thank everyone here. And of course, thank you guys in our Discord channel asking these incredible questions. But now it's time to head on over to Ricari with a little more from you guys.
All right, I'm back in my corner, right where I belong. Now, before we get to our first indie dev showcase of the show, a reminder that we've got literally a metric ton of technical content on YouTube for you that's on demand, available right now. Now, that content has things from teams like Turn 10. Yesterday, if you caught, Dan Greenwald from Turn 10 joined us to talk all things Forza. You can also check out Shay Goldenberg's talk on Forza Monthly to see how live streaming can enhance your engagement with your players. Not to be outdone, David Paris from Playground Games talked about how they improved the stability of their little driving simulator with From 0 to 1000, a test-driven approach to tools development. Head on over to aka.ms/GameStackOnDemand for the full rundown. All right, we've got more great games to talk about. Industry-leading 3D content optimization from our friends at Simply Gone. They'll be showing how their new Python API, can be used together with the Adobe Substance Automation Toolkit to create smooth texturing pipelines. You don't want to miss out on this opportunity to learn from the masters at Simply Gone. All right, now we heard from the team at In Exile earlier today, and now we've got ourselves one more bonus feature. Check it out.
You can playtest a level, kind of. And like in isolation, I'm gonna get a debug party that's set to level 15. I'm gonna go jump into this thing. That kind of works, but it's really hard to really tell outside of the context of the full game. Like if every single encounter was nail biting, like a really strategic challenge, that can actually have a lot of player fatigue. Like if everything pushes me to my total brink and like my party almost dies in every combat, while any one individual combat, you'd be like, oh man, that was really good, that was crisp, mwah. But then in the context of the full game, if I had to fight 25 of those in the first couple of hours, that's exhausting. And there's a little bit of power fantasy too. Like in this fight, I actually want you to feel powerful. You are a desert ranger, you're a badass, you're a special operator, you're highly trained. I want you to smoke this group. And like narratively, it's gonna feel really good. We want you to like feel powerful, and then we wanna like slowly challenge you. You hit a peak, you fight a boss, that boss gives you a really badass weapon, and then now you get to like coast down because now I have a frozen ferret rocket launcher. And I'm just, the next like 5 combats, I'm just dusting with this new weapon, and I feel like a badass. And then all of a sudden now enemies start compensating, and I start hitting some friction, and then we build up again.
Welcome to GameStack Live. Now, I know you were looking forward to showing off your game at GDC, but tell us about, well, I guess we're going to welcome our guest here, Clayton. Clayton, are you there? All
yes,
right.
I am.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I am doing great now that you're here, of course. Thanks so much for joining us in our virtual setting here. Now, let's talk a bit about your game. I know you were looking forward to showing it off at GDC. Of course, circumstances didn't allow for that, but tell us a bit about Bartlow's Dread Machine.
It's this idea for a game that I had actually years ago, and it's one of those things that you always have these things kind of like percolating in the back of your mind, things you maybe sort of like iterate on a little bit over the years, and this is one of those. This is something that maybe, gosh, over 10 years ago, I had this thought that, hey, what would a video game be like if someone created it over 100 years ago and they made it all out of tin with mechanical stuff? So I started thinking about that, but not just a shooting arcade thing, but the idea that it's like a real game. It has characters in it. They have upgradable weapons. They have a story that goes on this sort of adventure across all kinds of cool locations. And then, again, what would that be like if it was in this sort of giant, improbable device that someone made? And so, after kind of thinking about it and cogitating and doing a little bit of concept work, and I kept tucking it away, kind of putting it in the back of my mind. About 3 years ago, I published a game on ID at Xbox, which was the Voodoo Vince remaster. And I think that's where I finally made this connection that, I could just make this game and put it out on ID at Xbox. So, I partnered with a studio called Tribe Toy that's here in the Northwest sort of Seattle area. And so as sort of like my passion project, we've been working on it for, gosh, about a year now. And it's well underway, and we're out later this summer.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I actually watched the trailer, the announced trailer from a little bit ago, and I want to dive into the story. You kind of brought it up a bit of what would it be like if a video game was created a long time ago. There's also an interesting twist that was in the trailer of like the people who played it got injured. Can you dive into a bit more of what all of that means?
Yeah, so the creator of the game was this person I created named Arthur Harrington Bartlow. And Bartlow, of course, was like one of those like misguided people who had the best of intentions. That's his photo over my shoulder.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, sorry, just beating on everything.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Great. Yeah, this is my great little studio. So
I dig it.
Anyway, Bartlow creates this machine, and he of course spends everything he has creating it. He thinks it's going to be this amazing success because it's just like nothing anyone's ever seen before. But yeah, it's 1907, so they used live ammunition and live explosives and things like that. So of course everyone's getting injured, and that's also where it got its name. It was originally Bartlow's Machine of Wonders, and then it became known as Bartlow's Dread Machine. And of course he lost everything he had. There was a catastrophic fire, and then the notion is that my team and I at Tribe Toy have been kind of painstakingly recreating this thing from old blueprints and documents and things like that. So yeah, that's the notion of what we have going on there.
Awesome, and we're going to get into the premise of the game in just a bit, but I would love if you could describe the play style of the game, because that's something that really caught my eye, and I think that's something that's really indicative of a lot of ID at Xbox games.
Yeah, it is in essence a classic arcade game. I mean, it's a twin stick shooter with single player and co-op modes, and couch co-op was super important to us because I love the games that have allowed me to sit with a friend or a family member and just play a cool game or go on an adventure together, and that's one thing that we thought was super important, like thinking back on things like Castle Crashers or any number of other cool games, even Cuphead, that allow people to sort of like just get together and pick up a couple controllers and just play something just splashy and fun and quick.
Yeah. So, and you're coming into the ID at Xbox Group with a unique perspective, and not just as a partner, but with a deep well of experience in the gaming industry. Now, going back to the creation of Bartlow's Dread Machine, how important is it for you to have a unique premise for a game, especially when it's an independent, like ID at Xbox game?
It's really good to have something that makes you stand out. In this case, we wanted super accessible gameplay, but the look and style is something that we think really distinguishes the game. There aren't a lot of things out there that just have this sort of purely mechanical aesthetic where everything's got gears and wires and struts. Everything sort of has this sort of physical justification. I mean, when you get under the hood of the gameplay, we took, if you were to think of it as a Robotron meets Pac-Man, there are little tracks you guide your character along. You have choice and you have movement, but you're also playing this basically a twin stick shoot. So you're just rotating your sticks and you're blasting away at the enemies. So we wanted to make the gameplay super accessible. Anyone can just pick up a controller, have a good time. But the little twist beyond that is the fact that the game is still three-dimensional, even though it's sort of like 2D gameplay. We've tilted it into a box. So even though you're playing what you might think of as like an old school like Robotron game, when you tag an enemy that's like opposite corner from like another spot, there is skill. You actually have to like really think about those shots, and you really have to choose things carefully. And then the fact that it's three-dimensional means you get a little bit of thing. You get the strategic stuff like cover. There's objects in the world that you can use to sort of duck behind or hide, but everything's also destructible, including the backdrops. Everything in the game is made of tin. You can ultimately kind of lay waste to not only the enemies, but all the scenery and things you see around you in the game.
Yeah.
So, we thought that would be a distinguishing thing that would really make this sort of, we call it delightful destruction. And it was a thing that we thought would really help the game stand out.
I love it. The look is so unique. And again, going back to that point of seeing ID at Xbox games and just independent game development in general, we're seeing a lot of really cool ideas. And so I'm curious, in this world of maybe, we have the power of, Xbox Series X. We saw PlayStation 5, some stuff about that today. Where do you see independent game development as it stands to like these blockbuster games that are using the huge power of these consoles? And like, where do you see those games like in that space?
I think it's a big play field with a lot of room for everybody, obviously, and I love gigantic AAA games. But I do think the indie space is where you can try a new interesting idea. You can try something that you always wanted to try, or like with this, something that I just wanted to make for years. You find some like-minded people who maybe think, yeah, that's a cool idea, let's go make that. And I think without taking crazy amounts of risk, like Bartlow when he destroyed everybody. You can try that. You can try things that are maybe a little different, a little more daring, a little more, strange, if you will. And I do think that is where a lot of the great things do bubble up into tomorrow's AAA games. I think where this test lab where everyone can just sort of throw together some stuff and iterate quickly and be bold and be daring with their ideas is one thing you can do, I think, very effectively with a small team, especially thanks to the sorts of tools and technology that are available now. I think anybody can basically make a game who really wants to.
Yeah, let's talk about those tools. Talking about, independent game development, I think there's allowance for maybe more freedom in what you're trying to do. And part of that is being able to partner with ID at Xbox. Now, do you have any advice for devs who are looking to partner with ID at Xbox? And what was your experience like utilizing GameStack?
We haven't used a lot of GameStack yet. That's the new and coming thing, and our game's not out until late summer. So we're still looking at the sort of technology that we're incorporating, into our development process. We have a lot of our content done, but the question though about like what I would advise someone who wants to do like an ID game is it's part of it's the clarity of what you want to do. Like if you know what you want to do and you know who it's for, and you kind of have this idea that you want to again try something out that you think would be really cool and interesting. If you have compatriots who you can enlist to work with you, really all you need is to set up what amounts to like a business, and that can be pretty casual. You can usually just set those up depending on where you live online, and then there's an online application for ID. Anybody who lines up the right resources and signs up for that has a shot. Can make a game, and it can be on all these amazing consoles. all over the world. So it's I guess to me it's more about just kind of like having that vision, being able to drive forward with it, and being able to share sort of like that essential DNA of what it is you are doing with the people you're working with.
Yeah, and so I'm on kind of to dovetail off that question. What has been some of your key learnings? Again, everyone watching, or a lot of people watching this, may be trying to develop a game for the first time. What are some other key learnings that you would share with them to really get them started?
Yeah, I think again, it starts with that thing I was calling the DNA, the basic idea. I think that's sort of like the razor you use when you are making choices, because I've worked on big budget games, and when you can go down various rabbit holes, you can end up spending a lot of time on like really complex processes, or if you I guess what I'm saying is know your scope and costs. Know what it is you're trying to do. Don't try to go too far beyond that. I mean, it's possible to put together things and get that magical combination of gameplay and technology that everyone says, hey, cool. But it's also very easy to overscope. It's easy to be overly ambitious. It's a thing where I think if you just, again, keep your eye on what that vision you have for that end experience for your players, that will help you really kind of steer things correctly. And when you have a small team, it's easier to do. The communication's easier. Everyone's much closer to the game and the content and the processes. So I guess that's my main advice, is to just watch your step. Design smart, design carefully.
Yeah, that focus and that scope is super important, again, especially when you have a small team. Perhaps you're kind of forced to do that in some ways. Now, I would love, your experience. You have a very unique experience and background in the gaming industry, and maybe that's sort of also inspirational. Can you tell us a little bit about where you are as far as independent game development and just Xbox, anything that you can share with us?
Yeah. I mean, my job, actually, my role is I'm a creative director in Xbox Studios publishing. So, I mean, part of what I do is work with the external studios that are creating products for Xbox. But I go home and I work on games. It's just this passion of mine to still create things and make things, because I feel like that helps me do what I do, and that is to really understand the processes of making a game, what a team goes through, the psychology of what we do. I think it's very easy to get up onto a pulpit and make speeches like I'm doing right now, but it's I see that as kind of as all being parts of a whole, though. I will never stop wanting to make things and to be able to follow maybe a vision for an idea. And again, this is such a tremendous outlet. It's such a tremendous platform for doing just that.
Yeah, and you say it's a speech, but I think a lot of people you want to hear from that. They want the opportunity. Yeah, they want the opportunity. Yeah, exactly. They want the opportunity to kind of learn from people who've been doing it for quite some time and whose main job it is. And so, just to circle it back to Bartlow's Dread Machine, where can people learn more about the game, and where can they find it?
You can just go to www.dreadmachine.com. That's the main sort of landing page. So there are links there to, there's the trailer, there's screenshots and some stuff you can look at there. Also links to the Tribe Toy site. They're a really talented group of developers, super passionate about what they are doing. That'd be the main place to go.
I'm looking forward to the game, summer 2020. I'm telling you, that trailer caught me, and so I really appreciate your insights on making an original idea, and also like staying in scope, staying focused. Clayton, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks. Really appreciate it. Really awesome being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And now from an example of what GameStack can do for indie titles to two people who play them. Kelly and Ricari, tell me what you got.
Malik, I just got to say, first of all, what an outro you threw right there. Way to make people feel welcome. Way to make us feel welcome, too. And yes, we do play.